Hi all, welcome to day 3 of the Film Funding Conference. As always, first thing is first, it would be fantastic if you guys could give me a quick thumbs up in the comments, just to make sure that you can see me okay, that you can hear me okay, and just to make sure that everything is working okay. Before we begin on the first talk, I just want to let everyone know a couple of things that will be happening after today as well. For anyone that bought some additional courses along with the ticket to the event, those will all be emailed to you later tonight. And also, if you had any other additional kind of add-ons along with your ticket, those would all be emailed tomorrow. So you will have all of that information, either tonight or tomorrow. If you don't receive any information that you should have after this event or any of the add-ons that you might have gotten, please send us an email by replying to any of the emails that we've sent you. Those will go directly to us. And as always, please feel free to use the chat to network with each other and also to ask any questions. Today we will be finishing slightly earlier than the other days. So today will be about 4 hours rather than 5 hours. But we've got some really great talks lined up for you guys. And without further ado, I'd love to start with the first talk. We are going to be discussing how to put together a great pitch. A pitch when you're speaking to an investor, a pitch when you're speaking to a decision maker, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So for that, I would love to introduce our two speakers, Carol Dean and Carol Joyce. So I will add you both to the stage now.
Thank you.
Hi both, welcome. It's so great to have you here. Thank you for coming on a Friday, and thank you for coming on to give this talk. It would be fantastic if you could start off by introducing yourselves and letting us know a little bit about what you do.
Okay. Well, I'm Carol Dean. This is my daughter, Carol Joyce, and we teach independent filmmakers how to raise money. We run a nonprofit for filmmakers, and this allows donors in the United States. Nonprofits are set up to help filmmakers, so the donors can give money to us and get a tax deduction. Then we give it to the filmmakers, they make the films. Everybody's happy. So our job is to teach filmmakers how to raise money, and we give a lot of free classes that you can find on our website. There's a lot of things under our resources and under our blogs that are very educational. And we do intentional filmmaking class where we set our goals, and we all work together over 4 months to build your package, teach you how to get into meetings with people for donations or investments, and most importantly, how to close them. So and from the heart, we really believe that your mind is your greatest asset. And that's what we work with filmmakers on, to get them confident, because this is a business where you have a lot of rejection. But if you're not getting no's, you're not doing your job. It takes a lot of no's, right? What was it? You have to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince. That's the way it goes. So we want to cover a lot of things for you today on tips that we think help you raise money. And I want to introduce my daughter, Carol. She's going to tell you about our grants. The second half of our company is the granting side. We do the Roy Dean Film Grants. So Carol, tell us about that.
Hello, my name is Carol Joyce. I'm honored and grateful to be here today. I'm the director of the Roy W. Dean Film Grants, which is a global grant that we all would like all of you on the call to apply for. So let me give you some more information about it so you can learn about it. The Roy W. Dean Film Grants is for feature films, documentaries, webisodes, short films, all budgeted under $500,000 or less. So we're looking for films that you're making that are unique and make a contribution to society. So hopefully that's all of you out there. Okay, so we give 5 grants a year, and I just want to tell you about the next 2 grants coming up. We have the fall grant, which is the deadline is October 31st, 2024. We also have the Carol Joyce Student Grant that I created for students, global students. Any film student in school, anywhere in the world can apply for this. This student film grant also is can be a feature film, a short film, a webisode, anything under $50,000 or less. Now, our grants usually give about $3,500 in cash, and we have a lot of in-kind donations from top film companies, global, around the world, that donate to you, our filmmakers, and that's around $20,000. But it's very prestigious. We're one of the most prestigious grants in all of the United States. I'm proud to say it's taken us 30 years to get there. But if you want to know more, please go to FromTheHeartProductions.com, see all the grants listed, everything, all the different people in the industry that we're connected to, all the people that donate to us. It's very, it's a lot of information on there. We've taken 30 years to build a lot of information, free information for you on our website. So I'd like you to take a look at that. Also, we have a How to Produce Your Film class on our website, and we have some free classes on there, so take a look. And then one more thing is we have an intentional filmmaking class that my mother and Tom Beloy do. It's really great if you're making your first feature film. We really handhold you for 4 months while you get through that, and you feel very confident when you make your first feature. Excellent. Thanks, Mom.
Okay.
Great. And, you guys do some amazing work. And I think that, the main topic today is how can we, how can filmmakers here who are looking to put together, looking to either make their first feature or even perhaps their 10th feature or whatever they're looking to get finance for, how can they create a great pitch, right? That's what we want to find out today. And, from that, the first question and, and the first part of a pitch is your first impression. So I'm wondering, what are your tips on how do you make a first great impression? How can you do that?
Okay, that's very important, CV, because we're pitched constantly, both of us, for the film grants, and we are pitching other people to raise goods and services for those grants. So we're being pitched all the time. Now, what you really want to start with is what's going on with the person you're talking to? Who are they? And so we like to start you with what to do if you're in a meeting or in a program where there are a lot of potential investors, donors, because we work with a lot of donors. They get a tax write-off over here. So it's, when I say investor, it's donor or investor, either way. But the biggest thing that's going on is the person you're talking to, they've not heard anything about your film. So when they meet you, you want to make sure that you make a good impression, because they're thinking the first thing they in their mind is, do I like you? Do I trust you? Who is this person? That's a natural thing going on. So what you want to do is realize that the number one decision-making factor, the most important factor of all, is how you look and how you act. This is what they're going to be. They're receiving that information when they look at you. So do you have eye contact? Are you focusing on them? Are you looking right at them? What about your gestures? Are they positive, right? They teach people over here when they do television, don't talk with one hand, talk with two hands. You've got to be careful how you use your hands. Posture is a key factor. How is your posture? Because people that are confident usually have excellent posture. So how you move, how you sit, how you look. I suggest that you put some money into one great outfit. You can wear it to different places all the time. Just one great outfit will get you into a lot of places and bring you return on your investment, because people are looking for someone to trust. You've got to realize that people give money to people, not to your film. They're going to give the money to you. So are you trustworthy is the first thing they want to know. So the decision factors start with you, your facial expression, your eye contact. We have a gentleman out here in California, a professor at UCLA, University of California at Los Angeles, Albert Mehrabian. Now, he did a whole presentation study, and he found that 55% of your presentation is how you present yourself. 55%. So that's more than what your pitch content is. So the things I'm saying are very valuable to you. The second most important thing is how you sound, right? So how you sound, if you're uncertain, if you're talking and you're saying, or if you've got a lot of us, or you're pausing, that sounds like you're uncertain, and that can turn people off. So you have to have a lot of confidence. You have to practice your pitch. You have to know it. But most important, you've got to carry it inside you. Think back to Fahrenheit 451, that old film where they burned books, right? And people who loved their books moved into the forest as a group, and they memorized the books. They knew every word. That's what I suggest you do with your film. If you have to become the film, it has to be part of your DNA. So you can pitch the King of England or the gentleman or the lady you find on the street corner. You've got to have it as part of you. So you have to smile. And when you're talking, you have to smile with your voice. You have to be really excited. You have to be up. You have to be centered. You have to be confident, happy, relaxed. The thing to do is pretend you're fully funded. All right. We work with people. We do a lot with the mind because we think the mind is your greatest asset. So take on a mantra like, I am fully funded. That helps. Say that 20 times a day. Get into the energy of the money, that money people live in that energy, so that when you talk to them, you're on an equal level with them. All right. So no nonverbal gestures. Be careful what you say, because if you've added these together, you've got the 55 and the 38%. So what's left? 7. That's shocking. But that's all that your pitch matters. It's you they're looking at. So take that into consideration. You know your film. I think that independent filmmakers are our greatest asset. You're so talented. Your writers, producers, directors, all in one. That's a lot of talent. So confidence is your key. You have to pretend that you're making this film with or without your donor. You don't care if they come in or not, because you're fully funded. That's the most important part of the pitch, all right? The studios long ago took up a statement saying, if you can tell it in one sentence, you can sell it in one sentence. And as you might already know, sometimes the marketing people are the ones that say, no, I don't know how to sell this film. So your job is to create a log line that has the essence of your film. And that's your one line that can sell your film. So knowing your pitch, being relaxed, confident, enthusiastic, all of those are very important. But Carol Joyce is going to tell us about the pitch.
Okay, here we go. So a log line is a one-sentence summary of your story in your script. Okay, so what we're going to do is explain where a log line came from. Major studios such as Warner Brothers, Universal, Disney, they used to have script vaults, and in the script vaults, they would stack the screenplays on racks, and they would tell everybody to put the log line on the edge of the spine of the script or on the cover of the script to describe the story of the script. So this made it easy for studio executives to walk through the vault and then scan the scripts and see what they wanted. So that is what created the log line. So let me give you an example of a good log line so we can learn what makes a good log line. Okay. So since a log line is short, it's a lot of information that needs to be communicated in just a few words. So this is the trick here. Who is the story about? What happens and who benefits? These are the three questions answered in the log line. Then this is what makes a good log line. So let's look at an example of a good log line. Okay, and this is from the film Pretty Woman. A wealthy businessman falls in love with a hooker he hired for the weekend. Now, this is a perfect log line. Let me tell you why. The most important thing we need to know is the who. So the who is the wealthy businessman. Next, we need to know the what. What happens? The wealthy businessman falls in love. So what I want to tell you is that notice that all these verbs are active and visual. In a movie, the story can only be told through what can be seen and heard. We don't hear the characters' thoughts or smell what they smell or hear what they hear. We can only see what they see and hear what they hear, like falling in love. So our log line now has told us the who and the what. Now we need to know who benefits. Well, of course, the beneficiary of the story Pretty Woman is the hooker that, meets the wealthy businessman and falls in love. With these three elements in your log line, any reader can pretty much find the gist of your story. So let me give you a couple more tips about a good log line. A good log line also reveals the genre of your script. For instance, anybody could know that Pretty Woman is a romantic comedy. Also, if you have a good line, there's irony. So let me explain that to you. The who, the what happens, and the who benefits all often connects in an ironic way. So it's ironic that a wealthy businessman falls in love with a hooker. So this irony gives a twist to the story that makes it a little bit more exciting, because in real life, we always have twists and turns, and we want to have that in your log line as well. So I just want to remind you that log line summarizes your story in one sentence and reveals the story about what happens, who benefits from the action, has a little bit of the genre and a twist. That's a good log line. Thanks.
Okay, that's great. And it's a good example as well over here. I'm wondering, if you can tell us a little bit. You've mentioned the log line, which is a great starting point here for a pitch. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the rest of the structure of the pitch should look like? What are the elements of the pitch from the start to finish?
Well, let's start with a 2-minute pitch, because I think this is the most important one to start with. Because when you're at an event, or when you're hopefully in with a bunch of wealthy people, which is where you want to find yourself, that's where you can meet people with money. You're all dressed up, you know your film, you get into a situation. So what you want to do is have a short 2-minute pitch, because you don't want to tell them all about your film. You can't do that in an area where you can't really get their full attention. The 2-minute pitch is to get someone into a restaurant, their office, or your choice. You pick a place where you're in control of the environment. That's where the real pitch happens. But this is to get them interested in your film. So to get their attention, what you want to do is maybe you ask a question at the beginning of the pitch. Quite often, when you start to talk about your film, they're thinking, what am I going to do for dinner? Or have I called Mary or whatever? So you want to get them focused right here with you, back in the present. So a question brings them back. And sometimes you ask them, did you know something like this? And they will say, what? Because they weren't present. Now they're present. You can ask the question that leads into your pitch, and you have their full attention. So what else can you do? You can make a shocking statement. Give them some statistics that relate to your film. The hottest films selling right now are true crime. And I have a true crime film. Taking it from something like that. Begin with a quote. Begin with a compelling story that they can't stop listening to. It's very well written and you know it. You've got it in your heart. Or you can start with the joke, but get their attention. So this is what Tom and I teach in our intentional filmmaking class. How to pitch is a key factor. You really want to be prepared before you walk out on the street. We say, don't go on the street until you have your pitch, your package, your proposal, your budget, and you are prepped. Because once you get in front of someone important with money, you have to be totally prepared. So back to pitching. So when you get a potential donor in a meeting, you're sitting there, let them talk first. They are the ones who need to get the moment, shine a spotlight on them. So let's say that you've done your research, you know who they are, and you want to close them. Well, that takes time because remember, to close a big investor may take you 4 or 5 months to get their confidence and for them to trust you and like you. So when you get into an office to pitch, get them to talk first. That's the main thing. You get them to relax. Then you start telling them about your film, about the issue in your film or the storyline. I like it when people get into the essence of the story, the need for the film, the potential outcome that can be for profit or for participation. So the issue, the subject matter, and the solutions, right? So you have done your research, you know something about the person. So you get them to talk about their family, their business, their hobby, their children, whatever you have found about them that you feel is important. You get them to relax. Usually it's really good to talk about their business. Most people are pretty proud of the fact that they've got the money to invest for making it through their business. So you start by asking them questions, get them relaxed, and then you can get into a pitch in an office. So if you are in a crowded room, you're only going to give them the essence of the film, and the ask is, can I contact you at a later date? I'd love to share more information about my film with you, because you want to get their contact information and set up a meeting on your own terms where you're in a comfortable environment and you can really talk to them under your own terms. Those are the things I like. ZB,
I was muted there for a second. Sorry about that. I have done that way too many times in the last 48 hours. I wanted to ask a follow-up question from this, because we did have a talk yesterday with someone who was sort of doing a talk on booking meetings with decision makers. And what was quite interesting there is Justin, who was the person running the talk, mentioned that, you know, his strategy was booking meetings through LinkedIn, and essentially in the first 15-minute call or in the first meeting, not even pitching the film. He was saying, don't pitch. Just talk about them, ask for advice, build rapport, build a relationship. This sort of, even this 2-minute elevator pitch. If you're at a networking event, right? I mean, let's use that as an example. You're at a networking event, you know, there is a crowded room, and you've got someone in there, and you want to get them in the room. I mean, so, you know, you mentioned you asked them first, you know, a little bit about themselves and so on. But, you know, what are your thoughts on that, on perhaps even not doing a 2-minute elevator pitch, but actually just starting to build rapport until you know them a little bit better versus, this is my one chance, let me do my 2-minute pitch?
Well, all right. When I meet people, because we raise a lot of goods and services for our film grants, and when Carol and I meet them, we want to know everything about them. So we ask them questions. And then we share a bit about ourselves, but mainly we ask if we can contact them afterwards. All right. But Now let's go to when you're pitching. I'll respond to what you're saying.
Mm.
Over here, if you get a producer in a meeting in America right now, the people that I'm working with, they are pitching their films, but they're leaving it wide open. They are pitching so that they are engaging the producers or the funders in the conversation. Because even the best, usually it's a writer or a writer-director that's pitching. And they have to be totally flexible when they start talking about the essence of the film and the benefits and the story. They will only give little sound bites and then make a question to the producers or the money people to engage them. Because the worst thing you can possibly do is show yourself to be so confined in your story that you're not going to take any suggestions. You're not going to be easy to work with. Hollywood doesn't like that. So I can only speak for what I know about the people out here. They want to know that you'll work with them. You'll be flexible, and they can have something to do with shaping the project to meet their audience, because they're the ones that they have the audience. You have the idea. It has to be a two-way street here.
That's super interesting. So, we talked a little bit about the 2-minute pitch, and you're booking that meeting. You've got that longer meeting in. So, how can you prepare for that, or how should you prepare for that longer meeting?
You have to do research, get on LinkedIn, get online, even, go to a lot of really wealthy people have articles written about them. See what you can find in any magazines, newspapers. And if you have got any ideas, if they have ever donated to anyone else or invested in any other film, then you want to find out as much as you can about that, because it's best going in. So check on IMDb, see if they've got any credits, everything. But I think it's more personal, because they have to like you and trust you to give your money. That's the bottom line. So when you come to them with knowledge of the past films they funded, or know about their bio, anything personal, they appreciate that. All right. I mean, starting off with, I loved the film you funded in 1995. It was such and such. I've seen it 5 times. That kind of thing is what you can start with. And it has to be true. And you have to know the film and love it.
And because you mentioned quite a few times that, there has to be this rapport, and the person does have to like you. Is that something that you can teach? Is that because it's I always wondered, there's some people that you get on a call with them, or you get into a meeting with them, and no matter what, you just can't help but smile because they're so likable. And there's some people where you just go, you're really smart, you're really intelligent, but I just, you're so specific, or I just can't quite get on board. Is that something, with people that you guys have worked with in your company and so on? Have you been able to teach that aspect?
Yes, because it comes with confidence and practice. We like you to practice in front of a mirror, because I'm sorry, independent filmmakers have to know so many things. They're a paralegal, they're a producer, they're an actor, they're a writer. Now you're a salesperson. You have to do it. So you really should need books on sales. That's what we teach. Get the top sales book, because you need to know how to present yourself, how to close. But the thing to do is, the more you practice, the more confidence you get. So here's one way. You practice in the mirror, you get where you think you've got it down, you feel comfortable talking about your film. Record yourself on your telephone, your cell phone, and then send that to your friends and get feedback. Don't go out on the street until you are at the top of your game. Because Tom Malloy is a producer, has done 25 films, and we teach together. And he says, when you're When you get your pitch to an 8 or a 10, you know it's going to go down a bit when you get in front of the money person. So, because you're going to get a little nervous. But if you're pitching at a 5 or a 6 and you get in front of the money person, you're not going to be strong enough. So you have to have a talent there. And the talent is that you like yourself, you're confident, you know you're going to make this film with or without them. That's how you have to feel. And you're happy. And you are not really, you're not asking them, you're inviting them to join you because you know that this film is going to make money. The potential for making money is very strong or you wouldn't be doing it. And so you're inviting people to join you. When you take on that essence, that concept, it's a lot easier to make an ask.
I have a comment. Which I've learned with technology nowadays, do not try to pitch anybody on the phone because you can't read the person. Really push them to do a FaceTime or a WhatsApp or a Zoom so you can have like a connection and you could read the room when you're pitching, because some of my filmmakers will be pitching and the people will start drifting off and then they know to ask a question again or to do something. So use new technology to enhance your pitch. And when you do your pitch, record it. Like we have our filmmakers record their 2-minute pitch and they look at it, everybody comments and we look at it and they get to start seeing how they come across with the recording. So that's what we suggest. Take your 2-minute pitch and record it and send it to us. We'll give you comments.
That's really great. By the way, for everyone, feel free to ask some more questions in the chat, which we'll get to in a moment. And I'd also in a moment love to get to some common mistakes perhaps that people make. But before we do you guys have any other thoughts you'd like to share on the structure of the main pitch or what else should be included there?
Well, yes, I call it a sticky story because there's a book called Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath, Heath. It's a really good book. It's again about presenting yourself. And you see, the problem that you will find is that you have the greatest pitch, the guy loves you, the gal loves you, everything's fine. Then they have to go home and tell their significant other, mother, brother, whoever. We all like to talk about what we're doing. So they go to share it with someone. And they can't, of course, they can't pitch your film like you did. But the point is, then what are they going to remember? What are you leaving them with to tell their significant other? That's a really important aspect. Whoever you pitch, I'll trust you, or trust me, you're going to have to tell somebody else. It works that way. So there are 5 things you want to do. You want to have something emotional. Emotion is the key. I say that when you touch my heart, I open my pocketbook. So have something emotional in your pitch. Have something concrete, all right? That could be a lawyer, producer, or you've got some statements from a prior, from a filmmaker that's well known. Anything that is that cements your status. So you need something concrete, you need something credible, and statistics fall in any one of these categories. The highest percentage of films being bought now are X, Y, and Z, and this film fits that criteria, that genre. And you want something shocking. So that's what we're back to the pitch again, where you might want to start with something shocking. But it's shocking, emotional, concrete, credible. And you wrap those things in a story, which is your pitch, so that your receiver can go home, talk to the other person. Because this is when things fall apart. When you pitch someone and they're right there with you, ready to write the check, but they say, I have to go talk to my partner, and then they're gone. They don't come back. So we believe that's because they couldn't pitch it as good as you did. So leave them with those 5 things.
Sorry, muted again. Super interesting. We've got a couple of questions which could be great to touch upon now. Bella asked, could it be effective to tell the story of how you were inspired to write the story before actually pitching them what you wrote, to sort of create a bit of emotional buy-in? Is that a good way of doing it, perhaps?
Well, okay, so that depends. Yes, sometimes that is good, but it's not, don't give me a really long story. I like to know why you're making the film. Why are you attached to this film? Why you? Why can't someone else do this film? That's really important to us, or anyone that's funding. And Carol and I fund films, so we want to know what's your attachment. If you're telling something like the essence of the film is based on something that happened in my life, I'm very passionate about this, yes, you could start with something like that, because that assures me or makes me more confident that you would finish the film because it's personal. But I wouldn't get into telling a long story. Every moment you have with a potential investor donor is precious, and it's their time you're taking into consideration. So I would be careful about how long it was.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a good tip there. We've got actually a really interesting question over here in terms of approaching someone in a networking room, which is, at a networking event, how do you approach someone surrounded by others with the same intentions? How do you partake in a group conversation, and do you pitch in front of other people, or what do you do in that situation where you have multiple people and they're all trying to grab that attention of that one person?
This is really important. First of all, you've got to be present. You have to have great posture, you're dressed to the nines. You have to be present and paying attention. So listen to what is being said, who's talking about what's going on, and find some question that you can ask the person in charge, the person everybody's after. Try to get a question to them about them, because again, this is an opportunity for you to learn something about them. And how do you get into the old-fashioned business cards is still working. So if whatever happens and the person is about to leave, give them your business card and say, I would really love to talk to you about my film, because I think you would be most interested in it, and have a reason, some kind of a hook for them to get involved, or take your call, or answer your email. And you say, may I reach out to you? And most of the time they're going to say, sure. Or, we're finished funding for this year, I don't have any openings, and that's good. How about next year? Sure, contact me then. Go until no. That's the word that we say.
Right.
They say, no, I'm not going to find, not this time. They're going to say no. You say, okay, can I bring another film to you? Oh, sure. Okay. So that's a no, but you've got it open for the next film. Maybe they don't like that film.
I love that. Never give up, right? Yeah. We've got a question from Marcus, and how does the pitch differ if the potential funders are in it for philanthropic reasons, to help drive positive change rather than to make a profit? And I'd love to add to that question as well. If you don't actually know the person too well, is there a way to feel that out in the conversation of what they actually want? Is it profits? Is it positive change? And again, if it is positive change, how does that change how you would pitch it?
Well, there's a totally different essence between a pitch, between a person who wants to invest and one who wants to give it to you. All right. The ones that want to give it to you, they like you and they want to support you and help you. And so that's a wonderful energy. And you feel that. You have to trust your instincts. This is what we teach. Your gut feeling is reliable in this business of film. Trust your gut. So if you're talking to someone and you've got to read them, all right? They've been reading you. Now you need to read them. You want to look at them, how they're dressed, who they are. Are they confident? I always find that the wealthier people have a tan. It's as if they spend all their time out in the sun or in Spain or something. So what's their essence? I've been around people with tons of money, and you would never know how wealthy they are. So you just have to feel into it. Are they, what kind of a person is this? I love it when people give you money, because that's what we deal with all the time. People donating to documentaries and features through the nonprofit. And when it's an investment, it's a different type of person. They're more into the meat and the meat of the project. Where's the meat? What's the story? Why is it good? So those are the people you want to know. What's the greatest potential? What is their potential for making a return on investment? And that's when you start pitching. You can be on the set. You'll be on the red carpet. You'll be in the credits for associate producer, executive producer. Now you start, because they're thinking, what's in it for me? Those are the people that you have to have a what's in it for me answer. Carol, what do you think?
Well, I always like to use the words, partnership, strategic partner. And then if they're philanthropists, then you want to talk about impact or the vision, mission, passion of the journey that you're going on. And would you like them to join you? Or you would like, and you want to compliment them on some of the wonderful things they've done to give back to the planet, or what their philanthropies are, or how they give back, or what their impact on the planet is. So keep those words in mind.
Yeah, really interesting. We actually had a talk yesterday specifically on impact funding, which was also really, really interesting. I also absolutely love what you said, Carol, about sort of trusting your gut feeling. I don't even remember what that biological reason was, but there's actually a reason why your gut feeling is always way, way more better at actually telling you the truth than once your brain gets involved a little bit too much. So that initial feeling that you get of, I will get along with this person. I don't think this person is going to be good for me right now. Let me stay away. Or I think this person has money or doesn't. That first feeling that you get in that first split second is usually the correct one, because that's when everything in your body actually gives you that feeling. Yeah.
This is Dr. Deepak Chopra. We love him. He's been saying for years that the stomach is the second brain. The brain is so busy with controlling so many things that when the brain is overloaded, it often sends signals to the stomach, questions to the stomach. The stomach has no history of failure. So it gives you an answer right away. Yes, or yes or no. You can tell.
Yeah, I love that. And I'd love to touch a little bit upon what are the most common problems, or one of the most common kind of errors that you see people make when pitching to potential investors.
3 factors. We teach this in our intentional filmmaking class. 3 factors. First of all, you have to be enthusiastic. When you start pitching, you better be at the top of your game, heightened. If it takes two coffees, then do it, whatever it takes. Get excited. You must be excited and thrilled about what you're saying. That's number 1. Number 2, once you have presented your film, be quiet, sit back, wait in the silence, and your mind will say, oh, you forgot to say, or you didn't tell him this. No, don't say a word. The first person to speak is wrong. It's not you. It's got to be them. Because this person is making major decisions. The person is thinking, well, what if I wanted to put 100,000, where would I get it? Well, I could take it out of that savings. I don't know. Or maybe I could get this here and put that money here. That's what they're doing. They're thinking, they're juggling in their mind. So don't interrupt them, because when you do, they're going to say, what? Because they're making a major decision. So you just stay very quiet. That's the worst thing you could do, is to over pitch and interrupt them when they're thinking. Give them thinking time. That's two of the most important ones. Oh, there's another one, Carol. What's the third one? Do you remember?
Oh, no, I'm not thinking right now. I don't know.
Oh, because I've got a point on this last one, because I think most people know I'm guilty of this as well, are just not comfortable with the silence. And I think that tip of being comfortable with the silence, there is great power in that. Being comfortable in that, and actually giving the person the time to think, because there's something really scary when you feel like someone's pitching to you so much that they don't want you to think. They don't want you to think whether this is a good idea, because then you might come to the conclusion that it's not. I worked in a company where we had a big sales team there, and it is really true that stereotype that you hear of once you do the pitch, once you say the price or whatever on a sales call, whoever speaks next is the one that normally gives in, right? And it's very true of the pitch as well, where you have to be comfortable letting that person kind of then have a think about it and sort of and speak next. But that silence can be incredibly uncomfortable.
I want to jump on that, because I work with a musician, and he always tells me, give the space between the thoughts, because that's where the music happens. That's where the deep connection with each other happens, when you're sitting there just not saying anything, you're just connecting. So give everybody that space between the thoughts. Don't fill in the notes, he says.
That's great. I'm just taking a look at some of the other questions over here. Oh, yeah, we got one. Do you have any? I mean, you mentioned a couple of books already, but do you have any other recommendations of any books to read specifically on pitching? And also, is that something that you have more resources on this on your website, perhaps? For people who want to go more in depth on this.
Yes. Well, I wrote a book on film funding called The Art of Film Funding. It's the second edition now, but once I did that, I realized that I had to do a podcast. And I had to do classes, because things change so fast in our industry. So when you go on our website under blogs, there's everything you want to know about film funding, because we've got you 24 classes in there on everything that you need to know. Funding parties, making an ask, closing someone, film funding through crowdfunding. Many things. So we just think that you really need to be educated. That's what we do it From the Heart. Just give you as much information as you possibly can get. I don't know of any good books on pitching, but I do know that when we work with people who are pitching, and they start out CB and they start saying, well, it's all about Mary, and she does this and goes here, and that happens, this happens. That's not always a good way to pitch a film. What are the benefits? What's in it for me is what the recipient is trying to figure out. What are the benefits? What's to society? How is this film going to help others? Now, for a documentary, that's always easy. But for a feature, there's sometimes some really great benefits. Right now, anyone doing a comedy should get a lot of thanks from all of us. We need more comedies now. So what are the benefits to the people as well as to the funders? Those things are important.
Super interesting, guys, and definitely just a really, really valuable discussion. I mean, what I'd say is, in terms of finding books on pitching, the fundamentals that you learn are extremely important. But after a while, once you've attended a couple of talks like this, you've read a little bit about it, I find that it's a little bit like reading a book on riding a bike. You need to do it, rather than, okay, this is how you pedal, this is how you hold it. But until you actually start doing it, that is going to be the best way to learn it.
this is why you have to practice with friends, family, and people that are interested in the subject matter of your film. But start with the people around you to pitch them and get their reactions. And if you give them a pitch and they say, okay, that's fine. Now, where are we going for dinner? Then you know you have to start all over. That didn't work, right? Because they're not listening.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we're coming to the end of the session now. I'm just wondering, do you have any final thoughts for us? Anything else that you would like to share on the subject, or how you can help people, or anything else before we finish off?
It's your mind. Your mind is your greatest asset. See, you're the magic. You're the creator. We need you. So even if you go in an office, you pitch, and you come out without any money, you still have your talent. And that guy may not have a job next week. He's the one that says yes or no. So you're the talent. You're the magic. Be proud of who you are. Be confident. Treat yourself. Don't ever put yourself down. Honor who you are. Be thankful, because really, why did the universe put you on this planet at this time with all of your talents? That wouldn't happen if you weren't going to get funded, right? You have to believe that there are people helping you on the other side, your angels, your guides, whatever it is. You are never alone. You have friends. So confidence is the key. You're here with your talents. You want to make a film. You can make a film, but you have to believe it to achieve it. You're the magic.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly, I definitely, just want to echo that confidence is key. And in order to be confident, you have to believe in yourself, because the film industry is an industry that's filled with rejection. It's filled with people telling you, no, no, no. It's filled with people telling you that you've done a bad job on something because they don't like it or agree with it creatively, because, or anything like that. And because of that, it can get very easy over the years to get to a point where you lose your confidence. And I think it's really important. I love what you said, which is, in order to go into that, in order to go into that first meeting with confidence, you have to act like you already have the money. It's not about lying to someone and telling them that you have the money, but in your own mind, you have to believe that you already have the money, because if you come across as desperate that you absolutely need that money, that's when it will never happen. Because people, we are very, very good at sensing another person, and that other person will have a gut feeling telling you, they seem a little bit desperate. There's something going on over here. So
yes, turn them off. Exactly. No, it's a vibration. We are walking Wi-Fi's. We're all vibrating at different rates. So when you raise yourself to a person that is funded in your mind, when you can think, instead of maybe $5,000 in your bank account, that it's $500,000. When you start thinking like that and feeling that you deserve it, you are talented, you can do a good job, build up your confidence. That's how you can get into the same energy as people with money. And you really need to be in that energy to attract it. Even Tesla said it's all about vibration. So raise your vibration, be positive, be thoughtful, watch your thoughts. And whenever they come up, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm going to raise this money. You can't, that's not allowed. You have to be very positive, believe in yourself.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for coming on and giving this talk. Full with information and inspiration, and I think all the attendees needed both after the last 3 days of sticking around 5 hours a day for all this talk. So thank you so much. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Great. We're going to add a link to your website once again into the chat for everyone who wants to check that out. But yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully filmmakers will reach out to you as well.
Good. Look under blogs and look under resources. That's where you'll find the most information. Thank you, ZB, very much for bringing us here and letting us share our information.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you and take care.
Okay, bye.
Okay, and now we are going to go on to the next talk. We're going to have just a very quick 1-minute break, and then we'll be moving on to the next talk where we will be discussing things around tax credits, around figuring out what is the best country for you to shoot in, perhaps when it comes to, you know, to saving money or to getting more funding. We're going to be touching upon, you know, forming partnerships with, you know, tourist boards, as well as, you know, talking a little bit about product placement as well. So it is going to be, yeah, definitely a very interesting talk and very different from any of the other ones that we've done. So we're going to take a very quick 1-minute break. And just before we do, I wanted to let everyone know that we have now added the recordings from the first day and the majority of the second day as well to CineCircle Pro. As you know, you guys all get free access to that right now. So feel free to check it out. Not too sure how long it's going to be on there for, but yeah, but that will be on the main CineCircle Pro classes site. So that said, we'll be back in about 1 minute. We're just going to take a very quick short break for anyone needing to get a glass of water or anything else. Okay, everybody, and we are back with the next talk. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our next two speakers, Maria and Ludovica. I'm going to add you both to the stage now. Hi, both. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and yeah, and for sharing your insights here today. Let's maybe start off at the very start with your company. Let's talk a little bit about Mend Lioness. Where did the idea come from for the company? Why did you decide to form it, and what is it that you do?
Well, I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent because that's what I do. But
No problem.
I'm going to get there. So my path into the film industry wasn't straightforward. I always wanted to work in film. Coming from the south of Italy wasn't really something that you would do traditionally. And so I studied business and economics. And then I moved to London where I studied management. And that's where I saw my first opportunity into the film industry. And so my first job was raising finance, actually, for a film production company. And that was back in 2016. And then at the same time, I developed my career as a writer-director, and I also worked as a producer, both in the film and in the agency world. Now, that has given me throughout the years different point of views on what is needed, both from the point of view of a producer in what you're interested in, the point of view of investors in seeing which kind of projects they are more likely to invest in, and what are the blockers, and also the point of view of the desperate creative who's really trying to raise funds for her film and maybe doesn't fit into that narrative. And the truth is that since when I started back in 2016, raising private equity has become incrementally more difficult, because back then there was EIS. I don't know if you know what that was, but it was Enterprise Investment Scheme. So basically you would have tax relief on your investment and loss relief if you didn't make your money back, which made film, investing in film very attractive for people who wanted to pay a bit less taxes on their income. And then it was removed, or it became really, really hard for independent filmmakers to set up a EIS for their films. After that, there was lockdown, after that, recession and inflation. So essentially, raising money today is way harder than it was even a couple of years ago, because 2016 is not that far back if you really think about it. And so filmmakers nowadays have to look at things a bit differently. And when I was packaging my film as a writer-director, I had to make certain choices in terms of, okay, where do we film it? How do we make it happen? And at some point, as I was going through all of that, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was someone who is an expert in that and actually can already point you to the best countries for obviously what makes sense for your creative, because it doesn't make any sense for you to try to double France in Saudi Arabia, right? But given your creative and given what you want to achieve, how can you package your film in such a way that the equity left to raise is smaller, and that brings you closer to be greenlit? And that's where, very long answer, Linus comes from. And then I partnered up with Maria Laura. We were actually working together on my feature film as a director. And then one day we were having a chat and I was telling her, I'm setting up this entire thing because I think it would be really helpful for other filmmakers. And she said, Ludo, you won't believe it, but I'm doing exactly the same thing. And then we went, well, why don't we partner up? She has the side of working for big studios and having all of those already vetted production partners who can get access to tax relief and cash rebate. Because the important thing to say is that just because there is cash rebate or tax relief or there are deals in place, it doesn't mean that you're going to access them because they're going to be scrutinized by the Film Commission. And obviously you need to have certain partners in place. And so Maria had all of that. And so combined together, we made basically Linus. And that's where it comes from.
Great. And, Maria, Ludovica has done such a great job already introducing you, but if you would like to add anything onto that, please feel free to do so.
Ludo did a wonderful job. Really, really did a wonderful job. And I agree with everything she said. And that's what happened. And nothing else to say, really. She said it all.
I would love to make this talk over the next, 45 minutes or so, be really useful for people who are both at the very, very big early stages, of their filmmaking journey, who might not have a huge understanding of what we're talking about, but also for people who are a lot further along. So let's start off with the basics, and let's talk a little bit about tax incentives or tax rebates. Could you talk a little bit about what are those and how do they work exactly?
Should I go?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Like Ludovica said, the producer, when the producers decide to film somewhere, they have to find equity, private equity, or some kind of investment, and then they need to find the right place that works for the story and works also financially. And in that place, most of the time, there are countries with no tax rebate, but most of the time there is something set up in terms of tax rebate or cash rebate or tax relief, and or tax shelter. And all these schemes, all these rebates, they help the producers to make the film, to create a financial breakdown in order to achieve 100% of the budget. And they make the financiers aware of how the money is used, and if the financiers are interested in covering the rebate somehow, the existence of the rebate makes their decision a bit easier. And that's why producers should be aware of tax rebates and shelters and so on. They're really helpful.
And so, am I right in sort of saying that essentially or most countries have these tax rebates to try and attract as many filmmakers to go and film and spend money in their country, right? And so let's talk a little bit about what what line items in the budget are actually included in this tax rebate. So say I'm currently I want to film in the UK. I'm going to be filming in the UK, and I'm going to have a budget of 100K. I've heard that the tax rebate in the UK is 40%. Does that mean I'm going to get 40K back from everything that I spend that budget? And if not, what are the items that are included in the budget, and which ones aren't?
That's a very good question. I'm gonna go for it, but Ludovica, please jump in at any time. Let's start with the budget, 100K. You picked a country that doesn't have threshold or a limit. So you picked actually a good country for the example. It's really important to say that there are some countries that they offer tax rebate, etc., but there is a threshold, a limit, a minimum. So having said that, the UK doesn't have a minimum. And so in particular in the UK, it's a 20% of the 80%. So it's really important. I think now the listeners understand how important it is to be guided, because it's not so straightforward. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just cut off 40%. The UK in particular is 20% of the 80%. So you really need to know the basics on how the tax rebate locally works. And then in the UK, out of these 80%, there are some areas of the budget that they work and they are included, and some areas they are not. The line budgets that they work, they enter in the tax rebate, they change based on a country, based on the country where you film. For example, there are countries that, for example, give you the chance to have inside the tax rebate the actors, some parts of the above the line. Some other countries don't. And if we talk about the UK in a general way, of course, if we really want to discuss properly, we're going to have a one-on-one, me and you, and we discuss the UK properly. But as a general approach in the UK, I would look at the below the line. I wouldn't look much at the above the line, at least as a first instance and a first trial. And below the line, the line budgets that are local expenses in the UK, you should be able to put them in. And it's important. It's really I don't think I'm expressing enough how important is this part. For example, there are regions in the world and countries in the world that the tax rebate differs between the line budgets, the below the line that are the crew, and the below the line that are the vendors. So the UK doesn't make this distinction, so it's a good place, definitely, where to film. But you really, in general, you really need to know very well how it works, because there are various differences. There are ways to work it out. It's not always so simple. I hope I replied to your question. Ludo, you want to say something more?
I would maybe add that, for example, in the UK, there is also for the tax rebate for post-production and VFX. And in every country, so every country approaches tax rebates in a different way. So there are some countries that, for example, give some of the cash up front of all of it. Others who you have to wait afterwards. So you need to factor that into your cash flow. Yeah. So there is a very specific approach, and it needs to be looked into. And also, just because, say, the UK gives up to 20% or 25% in some instances, it doesn't mean that you're going to get it all. And there are some countries that also you need to qualify for the cultural test. And if you qualify for the cultural test, which means you're not just filming there, but you're also setting it there. And some of the above the lines are from that country. Also, the cultural test is different for every country. But if you fit those requirements, then you qualify for a higher rebate. So it's really a case of breaking it down country by country. There are no generic rule that, one fits all. And also the application, some countries are more strict, others are a bit more open. In some countries are a bit faster with the procedures, others are slower, which is why I think essentially having someone who can guide you through all of the process is quite essential, because you can do it yourself. To be very honest, if you have the time, it doesn't take a genius. It's complicated, but it's more like it takes you years of expertise and understanding it, and that's what Maria's been doing for years, which is where her expertise comes in hand. So it's more a matter of, we kind of know what works and how, and we can in 3 hours basically tell you, listen, if you package it like that, it's going to be easier. You can do it yourself, but it's going to take you probably months to figure it out.
Yeah, and it's gonna take also a lot. I completely agree. Not only the first times you're gonna say you're gonna jump on a number, and then 2 hours later, no, wait a sec, and you discover something else about that country. So it takes. Don't be afraid to make some mistakes at the beginning. At least it's okay. It's a very difficult subject. And to add one more thing to what Ludovica said, and then I stop. Ludovica mentioned 20% or 25%. Probably, or maybe the listeners here are wondering, why did she mention 20-25 when UK has 40? Because you need to count also the taxes in it. It's not like 40%. 20, 25, or 25 point something, or 33 and 34 at the highest level. Like you need to count the taxes in. So it's a bit difficult.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm starting to understand why you guys do what you do to help filmmakers, because it does sound like a little bit more complex than what it might look like. We had a producer yesterday who was saying, yeah, it's not 40%, it's actually 31.8%. Right. So there is that. I'm wondering though, before moving on, I'd love to get on a couple of specifics over here. We've got a huge number of attendees who are in the US. In the US, most tax incentives are done by state, right? Am I correct in saying that? Right. So they're done by state. And in general, when it comes to either any states or particular countries, can you guys give us an idea of what are some of the top countries that offer the highest tax incentives for filmmakers, generally speaking?
Off the top of my head, like the sacred grail is Malta. Everyone jumps on Malta. It's because it's well structured, it's quite pain-free compared to other countries, and they've done it over and over. That's why a lot of even big studio productions are filming there. And then I know that Laura is gonna say a couple of other ones that she loves, so I'm gonna let her do that. But yeah.
Well, it depends also. Okay, I was gonna say a joke. I was gonna say it depends on where you want to go on holiday and spend the next 6 months while filming. But having said that, let's see. I like Malta very much. I agree, it's 40%, and it's a good 40%. I agree. Not
when
only
you say 40% in Malta, it's not the same 40% as 40% in UK.
Well, no, because Malta is 40% of the Malta expenses plus something in the above the line. In the UK is the 80%.
Right.
You need to take your budget, calculate 80%, and then from there continue. In Malta, it's a bit different. Not only you need to consider that it's a cash rebate. I'm a fan of the cash rebate. Cash rebate comes to the financiers or to the producers in a faster way than a tax rebate. The tax rebate, for example, you have to, let's say you film in October, the local production company will file for the tax rebate, will finish everything April next year. And there are some countries that they make you wait for another 9 months so it can take up to 18 months to get the money back. There are countries like Malta or Greece, 3-6 months, because it's a cash rebate. You get your money back. I have a preference based on a period. Like in this period, I'm a fan of Greece. Filmed there, I loved it, and I'm pushing some productions there. Sometimes I'm a fan of Australia. But that's complicated. Oh my God, that's like the weight calculator says really complicated. But I'm a fan. And then the one I was mentioning before that could be very interesting for the American listeners is Canada, in particular Manitoba. However, Manitoba does the difference between crew expenses and vendor and the different. Like it's probably one of the most complicated ones, but it's an exciting system they have over there. That's a personal opinion.
I'm continuously shocked by how interested you are in this, but I love the fact that there are some people who are interested in this, because that's fantastic. So I want to now touch upon the fact. So countries offer these tax incentives. You mentioned a little bit of the differences between a cash rebate and a tax rebate, and the fact that a tax rebate will take a lot longer for the production to actually get that money from the government. And now I want to talk a little bit about why that's important and why that's relevant, how quickly you will get the money back. So it would be great to talk a little bit about sort of cash flowing and debt financing. Before we get to that, you guys mentioned there are some places that actually offer the money up front. Did I hear that right, Ludo? That they give you the money before you shoot?
So basically, Belgium is one of those countries. But the problem with Belgium is that at the same time, it's a bit tricky because you can't just film in Belgium. You also need another European country. And the other European country needs to have the proportion needs to be 30% in Belgium, 70% in the other European country, so that you kind of qualify for the cash rebate. So it's a bit more like 5 steps kind of process. So there is, if you have a film that, for example, is set in a European country, then it's great. If you're someone who is from the UK and comes, from the UK, or because now it's not Europe any longer, or from the US, and then you just go to Belgium for post-production, then it becomes a bit more complicated. So it's just a bit, it needs a bit more streamlining. But yeah, they do, compared to other commissions, they do offer the money upfront, which is why some people like it.
Wow.
Yeah, but then it's then you need to have a very good kick-ass line producer.
Yeah.
Because and an accounting team, because whoever gives you money up front, they also they follow up on how you spend that money and the fact that the movie needs to go on. So
I'm imagining that there are a lot of hoops to jump through there.
Really suggest first time the producer.
And I'd love to so again, taking this example of we've got a budget of 100K. We're shooting somewhere where, let's say, the tax rebate is about 30%. So you're going to get 30K back if you do everything right, keep your receipts, etc., invoices, and so on. You will get that 30% back potentially in up to 18 months, right? If you're going to have to wait a year and so on. So the question is that 30K, you know you're going to get it potentially in 18 months, but you need it for the shoot. So what do you do at that point to actually get that 30K for the shoot itself that you need it?
I can answer it briefly, and then Maria can expand because that's what she loves. But you get someone who pays against that amount. So you get an external person essentially who can cash flow for you that money, and then they're gonna see it later in the 18 months.
Yeah, amen. I couldn't say.
Generally speaking, this would be banks, for example. These would be. I mean, it can potentially be private investors as well, right? But
it can be private investors. It can be banks from the same country. For example, Greece, 40% is a cash rebate, and the Bank of Greece does this a lot. It's interesting if there is a connection, because the fact that there is a connection between Bank of Greece and the tax rebate, the cash rebate system, it helps with the fact that the producers and financiers know that this was done before. It's not a new workflow that you're trying. So the two entities talk to each other. Otherwise, there are companies that will financing companies that will be able to cover that.
It's not like a company like, can we say names? Yes, no? Zibi, yeah?
I don't have a problem with it. No, go for it.
like Headgear will do something like that. You know, there are companies that specialize in giving you money against like debt finance kind of thing, and you know, so they upfront the money and then they see it back. And obviously, when it's with film commissions like Malta or countries that have done it a lot, they feel more comfortable about it because they know that they're going to see the money back. It's not something uncertain, and it's quite a safe investment for your money.
If I can add one more thing about this, there are companies that they will tell you, they will give you the money up front, etc. But there are companies that will do that only if you you work with other companies such as Film Finance, which I'm a big fan of Film Finance. It's an external party that will make sure that the movie gets done, and it's a sort of assurance for whoever gives you the money that even if the producer fucks up and doesn't finish the movie, Film Finance will finish it. I hope it's okay if I'm mentioning them, but they're also based in the US, by the way. Just be careful because there is a difference. Companies who give you the cash up front and companies that will give you cash up front only if you have this kind of assurance. So, and it's not always that easy.
And so when you take this company, last point on this is, what can filmmakers expect in terms of how much interest or what payments is it reasonable to make? How can filmmakers know if they're getting ripped off by one of these companies if they go for a smaller one that we haven't heard of, for example?
It's an amazing question. It depends. It really depends on the company. They need to speak with them and ask, what's your, how do you make the money? Because of course they want to make money. I heard 20%. A friend of mine recently, she's opening this kind of company in the UK. And she, in order to be competitive, she was giving 12%. And that's competitive. I don't know, maybe Ludo knows more about this.
I will say, and that's pretty much the rule for anything in life when it comes to these kind of things, compare prices. Also, I wouldn't go with someone who is particularly small and unknown because they might maybe pull out the money last minute and then you can't film. So I would go with someone who is a bit of an institution. And they have been vetted and checked multiple times. Now, the problem is right now interest rates are also a bit crazy, right? So obviously when you borrow, that impacts also everyone else's rates. But yeah, I would compare. There are some, literally, if you Google it, there are 5-6 companies in the UK. They're quite known and you can check them. Obviously, the movie needs to be at a decent stage. They don't give their money to everyone, because otherwise they would have been bankrupted. So usually they have certain conditions that you need to meet, on top of having also the film commission attached. And yeah, so, and those are online, they're very easy to, it's like the usual ones: cast, a certain amount of the budget confirmed, a financial plan, shooting plan. It doesn't need to be the perfect schedule, but like an idea of when you're going to be filming, and if you have any pre-sales, which is quite hard to get these days, but some people manage to get them. So it's all of that.
Okay, interesting. And just I want to touch upon that when you say this 20%, right? So coming back to the example of, I'm expecting to get 30K back from in tax rebates. So, okay, this company, will essentially give me 24K and then get 30K at the end. Is that sort of how it works, or do you do it in monthly payments, or essentially how do you pay that company back? Do they just give you, the amount, that 30K less 20% at the start, or is that paid off in interest throughout, monthly, or how does it work?
It's a very good question. I don't know what this question is from, but whoever asked, well done. It depends on the company. It was you. Nice, well done.
Well, thank you.
It depends. It really, you need to speak with the company. I don't have this kind of company. I can't reply so in details. You need to speak with the company. They all vary. They all have different ways.
Yeah.
Maybe Guido has more to say about this.
It depends on the company. It depends if it is a company or if it is a bank, and it depends on the terms that you really manage to negotiate. So, for example, the same company can do at the beginning, they'll just give you the actual money that you need, so that is going against the cash rebate. And then, sometimes you can negotiate, for example, 24 months, but then it means that you need to give them a higher interest rate. Other times, you can negotiate like a sooner, if you give them back the money sooner, and then the interest rate is lower. So it's basically depending on your confidence that you're going to have that money, really. But it looks a bit daunting, but it's the same for investors, right? Because they're investing their money and they expect to see their money back. And usually you tell them that they're going to see around that amount of money back, depending on sales and whatever. So, I mean, film is a risky business. There is no other way to put it. And often movies don't make all of the money back. And that's why there is a waterfall system where probably a lender qualifies at the top of it if they are going to negotiate a good deal, so that they can see their money back. And there's a bit of a fight between the lenders and the investors and the distributors. And so it's complicated, but it's the way it is.
The reason why I asked the question was because there was a producer yesterday that mentioned, this is the issue can come if your shoot starts getting delayed, because at that point, if you're paying a monthly interest rate, that can start to add up if you can't pay off that initial loan because the tax rebate gets pushed back by say 4 or 5 months, that can really start adding up. So I guess that's just one thing to keep in mind for all filmmakers.
Yeah. Well,
Don't delay if you can.
And also, yeah, it's quite not likely, but it's quite common that a shoot gets pushed back. Something happens. The money moves slower than you thought. Some cast is suddenly available. So it's quite a recurring occurrence. So it's good to have a bit of buffer on that type of thing.
And in that sense, is it also good to sort of leave actually locking in that deal, until right before the shoot or as close to the shoot as you can, so that you're as sure as you can that the shoot is going to go ahead, say in 6 weeks' time, rather than doing it months before?
Well, to be fair, it depends. Yeah, yes, as in yes, but you also need a couple of 1 or 2 months to actually get all of the money and move everything, and then all of the money arrives the same day, kind of thing. But you need to make sure that everyone is aligned. So you want to have that buffer. But yes, I totally agree. I wouldn't strike deals because things can change. So I wouldn't sign any contract that says you have to give this amount of money back by this date unless you're really, really sure that you're actually filming and everything is ready to go.
Well, the cash rebate and tax rebate system helps with this. That's my opinion. If you are signing with a company to cash flow the cash rebate, you need certain documents from the country and the film commission, and usually those documents are ready and available 2 or 3 months before the shoot. Like it happened in Malta, for example. I don't know if Ludovica remembers that. So it helps. Sometimes things, sometimes you're forced to act faster in the 2 or 3 months before shoot, because that's when you get the film commission on board, and when you get everything rolling, if you are filming outside your country. So
okay. So obviously the tax incentives that different countries offer are a huge sort of thing to keep in mind when you pick the country that you want to shoot in. What other things should you keep in mind when you're advising, for example, your clients on where might be the best place to shoot? What are some of the other elements to keep in mind? And we can leave out let's leave out the creative aspect, right? So again, obviously we're not going to try and shoot Paris and Saudi Arabia, but I'm talking more from a financial point of view.
Well, I think that was part of your introduction, making deals with the touristic board or product placement, right? So those are obviously. I mean, the truth is, being very honest, we do have some deals with some tourist boards, etc. But that's because we've been in the industry for quite a while. Obviously, if you go as a small independent filmmaker and you go to Greece and you tell them, "Hey, we're shooting here. Can you give us some deals?" They're gonna say, "Probably not." So partnering up with, well, I think first of all, have a script you really, 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 really believe in, and then try to partner up with people who can help you. And helping can also mean just giving you access to certain conversations that you wouldn't be able to have by yourself. And then another big thing is, it's a bit controversial, but it's product placement. I think if you are lucky enough that you are a first-time filmmaker and there is someone who, for some reason, maybe it's the topic, I don't know, the topic is sustainability, and there is a sustainable brand who wants to be featured, etc., etc. Those are great opportunities, and I'm very aware that creatively is kind of thrown upon a little bit, because obviously it makes, if you want to be a film d'auteur and be very very indie, very French, everything that feels commercials almost feels like an insult to the film, but I think that the time we can be the most creative is when our creativity is challenged. So if you really, really think like you want to make this film and you're lucky enough that someone is interested in putting some money for and feature the product, you can probably find a way to write in if it makes sense with the story. And Maria has an example about that, how they on a production they did something very clever where basically they got a deal with an airline, and in exchange of that they filmed, like, what was it, 30 seconds of a spot for them?
I think it was 2 minutes of simply raw footage that we gave to the airline marketing team in perpetuity for their use. So instead of paying for an ad agency, they just got a good director to film raw footage for them.
And that way they got a massive discount on traveling costs, which are
It was free.
exactly.
It was free. It was a beauty. That was great. Yeah, that was great. And I learned this system in documentaries. When I was in documentaries years ago, I was the queen of getting things for free in this way. Like I was really going for it. And documentaries, it's easier because you really are there to show a place. The movie, you show the story, and in the story there is the place. But documentary, you're there to film the location. So yeah, I took it from there. I got flights for free, hotels, ground transportation, many other things, food, whatever, many other things, permits, and all those connections that I made in this way years ago, they followed me into movies. That's why I'm not really shy with asking them to do the same, because we did this in a documentary. Now I'm doing this with a movie that is going even bigger than the documentary, and that gave us the chance to build some negotiated deals, and yeah, so on.
But I think that's a very good example, because it's not the classic product placement kind of thing, right? It's more like, let's see a way we can collaborate. Like, we need to fly back and forth. You have an airline that needs advertising.
Yep.
Is it going to cost us more to film raw footage for you for a day, or paying all of your flights? And so it's kind of thinking out of the box a little bit and finding ways you can collaborate.
Absolutely. Not only if you go there, we say airline, right? Great. So if you go there to the airline and you have this offer, and then the offer of raw footage, 2 minutes should be enough. Otherwise, you can tell them that you're going to have a scene where, let's say, 2 people fight, and behind these 2 people there is the airplane with the brand, done in a nice, of course, a nice, polite way, not really with the airline huge in front of the screen. Not only when you go there and you have already connections with the tourist board, and you have connections with the embassy, like you have weight. You're not just someone who goes there talking to an airline. You go there as the producer who knows the ambassador of that place in your country, and the ambassador is helping you, and then you know the tourist board, and the tourist board wants to help you. It helps. Like it's all very connected, and that's my final suggestion on this. If you want to do this, don't go straight. Go first to tourist board and embassies. They really help.
Okay, that's super interesting, and it's also interesting to talk a little bit about the fact that here in the product placement. I mean, I think there was a shot of the airline in the film, but actually the fact that you can add a lot more things on there, right? Like you can add clips and so on for the airline to use in their advertising, which doesn't even need to make your film, right? So it's not just product placement in the film, but you can add a lot of other things. As we're filmmakers, we're there, we've got the camera equipment, so that's a great point as well.
Not only if you have a clever director and clever actors that are into the movie and not just there to gain some money, you can also create social media campaigns. If you have actors that are quite relevant in social media, you can make contracts where the actors can make a... I'm not even in social media, so I don't even know. But I did this, but I'm not. But I remember that we agreed on with a contract to have them on TikTok and Instagram, etc., every day for a number of days with a number of posts about the airline.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
The more followers your actors and the director or whoever is doing this, the more followers they have, the more interesting is for, I say the airline, but can be any other vendor. So.
Yeah. Okay. And it sounds like building up relationships with, for example, embassies, tourist boards, etc., is a key part of this, right? If you're a first-time indie filmmaker and you send an email somewhere to a tourist board, you probably won't hear back, or it probably won't be the reply that you want. And I'm just wondering whether you have any tips on for indie filmmakers who want to start building that relationship?
I think the first tip is have patience, a lot of it. It takes time, it takes years. There are connections that don't immediately make sense. Right now we're working on a film. It's a really nice one. And the film arrived through me, through a contact that I met 8 years ago at a film festival in Miami. And I just liked this person, and we clicked, and we kept talking. And he's from the US, from LA. I live in London. So every year we met in Cannes, and we just had like a drink or something, you know. And now this year he went like, "Oh, I have this massive project. Do you want to jump on?" So it needs to be, first of all, it needs to be genuine, because if you don't like that person, no way you can talk to them for like 8 years. So building your network with people that interest you because you find them interesting, and you know, first of all, it helps you to stay inspired when you're a bit depressed and you're like, why am I doing this with my life? Like, maybe I should change industry. It's good to see other people hustling, and you are in all of that together. And then, you know, you grow together, and those connections at some point are going to make sense. And in terms of reaching out to touristic boards, etc., that's harder. I think what I would say is, I mean, what both Maria Laura and myself have done is we haven't just been indie filmmakers, right? We've joined companies, and we grew our network through the companies we work for. And you meet people in your current position, and those people then remember you because you were a good producer on that production. And then when you reach out to them, you're not a total stranger. So maybe an advice I would say is to have jobs that, even if it's not your dream job, is somewhat relevant to what you want to do. And for example, I mean, my ideal life would be just writing and directing, and I've been producing for almost a decade. What? I have been working with people who are great directors, and that I wouldn't have been able to access if I wasn't a producer. And I've been learning from them, and I've been growing my network, and then somewhat everything connects. But you need to look at yourself in the mirror and think to yourself, do I like this enough that I'm going to struggle on this for like the next decade? And then if you say yes, then you do it. If you want to get everything in 6 months, that's not filmmaking. It's not going to happen. Yeah.
I have one more thing to say, but my comment is gonna suck compared to the amazing answer Ludovica gave, but it's a very practical one. I completely agree with everything Ludovica said. Yes. I just wanted to add, for the filmmakers out there that are really at the beginning, like I was 500,000 years ago, I had tons of embassies and tourist boards not replying to my emails. It was the game of the day. Like, yeah, every day they didn't reply to my emails and calls. Keep pushing. Not only if it's really important that you are in a city with a lot of these embassies and offices. And I'm lucky enough because I'm in London. Like, if I want to go to the embassy of Burundi, I think that we have it. So, if they don't reply, go there. I had to film something in Algeria, and nobody was replying for a week. After a week, I said, you know what? Where is the Embassy of Algeria in London? It was in the center. I went there. And before knocking the door, I remember I called my husband and I said, I'm actually in front of the Algerian embassy. If they arrest me, so you know, because I knew I was going unexpected. Sorry, my English. I was there unexpected. I just knocked the door and I said, I'm a producer. I'm doing this. I need help from you. I need to speak with someone. And you keep doing this until they give a reply, because it's their job. It's really their job. So keep pushing. That's it.
So it's interesting, kind of, yeah, perhaps showing up at embassies. I did an interview a while back with a photographer called Matthias Falconi, and he does a lot of photography for different tourist boards. And he actually said one thing that worked really well for him to get jobs essentially at these tourist boards is that they actually go to a lot of events. I don't know if that's something that you guys felt as well, that there are any like expos style events where you can actually talk face to face to these tourist boards or other places perhaps where you can meet them.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, you go.
Oh no, I was saying personally I haven't done it, but I just remember of another thing that I've done, which was I had a project and I really liked the project. And so I got in touch with local producers in that country to see if they could put me in touch with the tourist board, which is also a good approach. So if you have a project that you like and you can sell really well, and maybe essentially, again, it's all about network. Basically, if you don't have something, look for someone who can have it and can help you. And look for people who believe in your project and want to help. That's the very basic answer. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that in major, like in capitals, usually like London, for example, Los Angeles, I'm sure they have, New York, etc. There are every 3-4 months there are like tourist-based festivals or fairs, and there is one in London every November. It is amazing, and last time I went was in November 2019, and I remember I had tea and coffee and cookies at the stand of, it was the Chinese stand, but not only, it was the Wuhan tourist office stand. And it was exactly when COVID started going, and I was there getting tea, cookies, lovely people. We were going to film something actually there, and then of course it didn't happen because COVID happened, unfortunately. But anyways, jokes aside, is there are fairs you can go and just make a list, prepare, because these fairs are huge. Make a list of the country stands that you want to visit and go there, introduce yourself. I'm a bit old style. I used to have a business card, so you can just give it and follow up with an email.
So interesting. And I there's been something, by the way, Vika, you mentioned that network is everything, and I think that's something that's become definitely very apparent during the last couple of days of running these talks, is that I think someone said yesterday, when you're trying to solve a problem, it's unlikely that it's going to be a how. It's more the solution is going to be a who, like who can help me solve this problem, who can figure this out. And I think that's very true for in this case and in all other cases when it comes to film funding. It's always going to be people that will be helping you rather than a how or a hack or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean the beauty of filmmaking is collaboration, right? It's meeting all the people, and then a project can change depending on the players on the project. Everyone brings something, and so I really I'm one of those who, the more the merrier. Like, I'm really happy to collaborate. I think there is a magic in it, and sometimes it can happen that you start a project with some people and then it doesn't work out with those people, and you need to maybe revisit it and change dynamics, etc., etc. And that's probably also big learning for first-time filmmakers, because when you collaborate on a feature film, especially short films are faster, feature films last very long, and you get to know people very well. And that's actually one of the reasons why the film industry is a bit complicated, because once you find people you like to work with, you tend to stick with them, because the uncertainty of working with someone that you don't know if you want to spend 2 years with, it's quite dooming. And so what happens is that for people who are new to the industry, when they try to get onto a set, a new project, or they offer themselves as DOPs or crew members or writer directors, whatever, even if they are super talented, because there is this fear of like, oh, but I'm going to have to work with this person for so long, it can feel kind of a bit closed off, and it's hard to get your foot in. But if you persist, eventually you will, because I mean, both Maria and I, we're not English. We don't have a background in filmmaking. We didn't study filmmaking. We didn't go to a university or an academy or whatever. We just, day after day, we kept pushing the door a little bit. And we're still pushing it. I mean, there's still a lot of road to walk. But, it gets better, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I am. By the way, if people in the audience have any further questions, please feel free to add them in the chat as well, as we'll be wrapping up soon. We had quite a few questions in the chat, which are all quite specific. Does Morocco offer really good tax breaks? We're shooting in Vietnam. Where would you suggest filming tax incentive wise? Any thoughts on Hungary, Sweden, and a ton of other questions like that. Generally speaking, I mean, can you just go on a sort of government website from each country to find out about this, or what would be the best option? Is it ChatGPT or?
No, sorry, I'm not a fan of ChatGPT. Guys, you're producers. Produce. Use your mind. No. Okay, I'm gonna reply quite fast. LinkedIn. You know what? It's a good investment. The LinkedIn, the premium one, is like so expensive. But use it for a month, pay for a month, and contact those the people that work in the tourist board or embassy or whoever, local producers. I think LinkedIn is interesting. Otherwise, Google. Just don't use ChatGPT, guys. Come on, you're smarter than this.
I think they were also referring to like tax, just where to find tax rebate numbers in general. So like, how would they know if Morocco is a good place to go to upfront?
Oh yeah. Then if it's about info, you can go to the website. Just some website. There are some countries that have websites that are a bit confusing, and England is one of them. UK is one of them. I don't really find the UK Film Commission website concerning the tax rebate very easy to understand. But yeah, you can go to the website. Morocco, I filmed in Morocco. Beautiful. A good. I mean, not one of the best, but sure, the tax rebate, but they help you a lot.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, basically, if you go to the Film Commission website of each country, usually they do have websites, and you can find it quite easily. They're quite clear.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. We've got also a question on product placement, which is, product placement is very tough. Any tricks to stand out from the crowd if you don't have big stars in your project? If you do have a smaller project, is there any tips you can give on how can you make that more attractive?
Well, it really depends on what your project is about. So that's why I was saying the example about sustainability, but it can be another example about, a film that I wrote and I'm going to direct is about mental health. And so you can get in touch with certain charities that can be interested in the topic. And you can get in touch with certain brands who strongly feel about the topic. So it really depends on your film. You need to find something that makes sense for your story, and that brands would be strongly feel about. Obviously, it's not easier, but it's kind of more accessible if you have a movie that has some social topics, maybe, because that was our approach. So an impact approach, which is a whole different thing that we can talk about. Otherwise, you just focus on the strengths of the movie. I mean, I'm sure if there is, I don't know, a horror film where you're using a chainsaw to kill everybody, surely you can find a brand for the chainsaw where it's like, this chainsaw is like the best one that you could get to chop people off. You know what I mean? Like, it's an extreme example, but you can find things that like there are in every film. There is something. There is a product and features almost as a star.
Mhm.
You know, it can be sometimes it's the location, and in that case, you go to the tourist board. Sometimes it's an item that is very much used throughout the film. You know, the classic example of the Ray-Bans in Top Gun. Everyone knows about it. But you know, sometimes it can be wine. Maybe it's a film where there is a big party scene. You know, in that case, you know, alcoholics and non-alcoholics alternatives. Uh, Glasses brands. So it really depends on what's in your scene and how it needs to be something relevant. It cannot be something that's like appears for a half a second and then disappears. But if it is something really relevant that the brand can then reuse, and for their own campaigns and that aligns with the brand general theory values, then it's kind of sometimes it could also be that maybe they don't put money, but they give you all of that for free, and that's already a cut on your costs.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Great insight there. And you know, as we're sort of running out of time, I just want to sort of bring it back to your company. You know, to about Men Linus Pictures, and you know, from all the attendees here, what kind of projects do you guys take on? Is there a general kind of, do you have any criteria or budget restrictions or anything like that for filmmakers to keep in mind?
Well, so we take on projects that are, I'd say, well, what's considered probably a small to medium budget in the US and quite a decent budget in the UK. And for those ones, we have a very standard approach with et cetera, et cetera. However, we come from a love for indie filmmaking too. So if we really love it, we are happy to help also budgets that are like 1 or 2 millions. We can look into them, but it needs to be a topic that we really love. Otherwise, the bulk of our work is 10 million plus.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This has been a talk filled with lots of useful information, lots of insights. So thank you so much for coming on and for sharing it with all the attendees.
Thank you.
Great. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and once again, massive thank you for coming on. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh. Sorry, everything was moving around in my backstage area for a second. Sorry about that. Great. So just finished with that last talk over here, and we will be moving on to the next talk in literally just 1 minute time. So we're going to have a very quick 1 minute break, and then we'll be moving on to the next talk. So we'll see you all in 1 minute. Okay, everybody, I hope you had a nice quick break and are ready for the next and second to final talk of the conference. In the next talk, we'll be speaking to Nick Sadler, who created a company called First Flights, which has a film fund and helps filmmakers, fund films as well as, turn shorts into features. And I would love to, to discuss various different ways of how he helps people fund both features, shorts, and so on. So, Nick, I'm going to add you to the stage now. Nick, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, how's it going? I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to talking about everything we do and answering everybody's questions.
Absolutely. So let's start off. Could you give us a little bit of a brief background and a little bit of information about yourself? Where you started off and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, I'll try and keep as brief as possible. So I originally was in the music industry. I'm originally from New Zealand. If you can't tell from my accent, it's softened a little bit over the years. So I came over here for music. I was doing a lot of producing, and my big break is I started a independent record label called Never Say Die, with quite an influential producer over here, and we ended up basically being part of the first dubstep EDM wave into America. We signed early Skrillex, Flux Pavilion. It was like an amazing journey. Part of that, so we started like doing a lot of music videos, and I really sort of started getting into the film side of things. So when I moved on from there, sold that company, I sold the label. One of the music producers for us, did all the music videos, was like, "Hey, love what you're doing in the music world. Like, can you apply that to the film world?" So there's a guy called Tom Payton. He was really frustrated with how long it took for the film cycle to go. It can be often years to make a feature film. And he was like, we've got all this technology. You can film on an iPhone now, and surely we can do the whole development and script to screen in 12 months idea. So we started a company called The Film Label, which was like a record label, but for the film industry, using all the same kind of things. Because in the music industry, right, you can turn around a single or an album in like 12 weeks, right, from start to finish with marketing and it for be a real success. So that was our real focus. And our first film was called Pandorica, and we literally took it from script to screen in just 12 months. And we did lots of cool things as well, like tying it in with, we had a band called The Prototypes, who did a single, composed the music for the film, then did a lead single, and then we cut a music video to the lead single, and then approached UKF, which is a very huge music industry YouTube channel, like millions of subscribers, and then they uploaded that, and that's how we got the word out about this new film. It was like, oh my god, this amazing song and video on that, and we're like, oh yeah, it's from this film called Pandorica, and they're like, wow, and there's a link below to click on that. We were just really all about like, what kind of different marketing things can we do? Like, so also in music, people do like CDs and comic books and stuff. So the director wrote a prequel to the film, which we then got illustrated by a DC Comics illustrator. We then got 10,000 of those pressed up, and then pre-sold them to a Lootbox. Lootbox, if you don't remember them, they're like a subscription-based company. So you pay like $20 a month and they send stuff out. So they just bought 10,000 of these comic books and sent them straight out. So we just got a check straight up front for that. And then at the end of it, it was like, hey, if you want to watch the film, enter this code, like scan this QR code into this code and go in. So we're really all about doing that kind of stuff. And that was my introduction into the film industry. And then I did Dark Beacon, I did Iron Sky, and then I started First Flights when I met Phil McKenzie in Cannes. And I was like, I started realizing, as probably a lot of people on this, what do we call this? Is this a webinar or a call or conference?
We call it a conference.
Online conference?
Online event.
Online event. So like a lot of people on this online event, I was realizing, wow, like it's quite hard raising money for films, and you've got to raise quite a bit of money. So I was in Cannes, and I was very nearly not going to go to this boat party. I was doing like a big sober stint, so it's just kind of like, you know, networking during the day and going home early. And Cos Greenop, who was the writer director of Dark Beacon, as I was walking home and he saw me, and he's like, Nick, come to it. And he's like, oh, I don't want to go. Just come. It's a boat party. Just go and introduce yourself to everyone and then leave. Just network. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm here to do. Okay. So I went along and did it and went round. And then I was at the front of the boat and I met Phil McKenzie, who is the COO of Goldfinch. And I was telling him what we're doing. And you know, so I personally love working with people that are at the beginning of their careers, because it's the most exciting kind of part for me. And I did that in music, and I was doing that in film as well. And I was like, I kind of want to keep developing this, but we need some money. And they were like, oh, well, you know, we're like a film financing company, and we've been wanting to like do something where we can help out filmmakers, but we don't know anyone to kind of like work with. And I was like, and I need money, and you need someone to work with. We're like, So we went back to London and we had a few meetings, and then we we started First Flights together. So Goldfinch, they own half the company. I've got half the company, and we run this kind of incentive together. So it's amazing. And and Kirsty Bell, who's the CEO as well, who's an incredible female CEO in the film industry, which there is not enough of, if I have to be honest. She's been amazing, and they've been really supportive of everything and growing First Flights and what it is today. And then we started the Short Film Fund, the very first fund, very first round. We backed An Irish Goodbye, which ended up going on to win a BAFTA and an Oscar for Best Short Film. So, you know, that when that happened last year, that like completely, we were doing pretty well, but that really opened up the doors for us. And then sort of like, here we are. And recently this year, we've sort of grown a little bit more. We've started the Future Film Academy, which is really about helping out filmmakers with the business side of filmmaking, because there's plenty of courses and programs and YouTube channels and schools like on how to pick up a camera and shoot and edit and create the actual product. But a lot of filmmakers are like, yeah, but how do I actually get that product in front of lots of eyes? How do I make money out of it? How do I distribute it? How does all that work? And there just really isn't that. There isn't as much information comparatively. So our Future Film Academy is just really about that, about how you can learn about the business side of filmmaking, looking into the future as well. So, you know, I'm a big fan of AI on the business side. Creative side, you know, I think that's all up for debate at the moment and what's going on. But definitely on the business side, you know, how can we enhance that? So, yeah, that's kind of that's my story up to here.
Wonderful, and I want to dive into the details of all of that. Let's start at the beginning. I'm curious. You said, okay, we wanted to really streamline the process. At the first, when you started the film label, you wanted to create, you wanted to streamline the process to shorten it to 12 months.
Yeah.
How did you go about doing that? What were some of the main things that you did to try and shorten that process for what, for some filmmakers can be years and turn it into under a year?
So the first thing we did was we made everyone take Adderall and work 20 times faster than what they used to.
You're probably half joking.
No. Well, I did actually. I had a press company once, and we did give all the interns Adderall to make them work a bit faster, and it worked for a little while. But no, in all seriousness, what we did was we just, we took control, right? We did it all ourselves, because when you do it yourselves, you have no gatekeepers. You've got no one that's saying no. You've got no one that's holding you up, right? That's how you can do it, I mean, because, what does it take to really once the script is written? I mean, Tom is a very fast writer, and, he was like, this is a good script, did a couple of revisions. Yep, this is cool. Let's go and take it, let's go and shoot it, basically. He's a fast editor, if you're on a, this was like a micro budget feature film, we're talking under 500 grand here. So everything moves pretty quickly. It's still like, it's still a 3-week shoot. But all the effects and all the cutting afterwards happened very quickly, and then what else is there? We got investors on early. We were utilizing in the UK, where they've got the SEIS scheme. So we used that to offset the risk with the investors. And they were quite happy to do that. So we're able to raise, a smaller budget. So I mean, I guess number one, if you want to do it quickly, do smaller budgets. That's a key thing, because the barrier of like trying to find all the money is a lot lower, right? Because you've got less money to raise. So that's number one thing. Move quickly, edit quickly, and all that kind of stuff. And then, and then it's like pre-selling it and going to festivals. So we went out to Berlin, we went out to Cannes, we went to AFM, and we just went out and met sales agents and said, hey, this is what we've got. Like, do you want to sell it? And, we then managed to get a sales agent to sell it in America. We did our own distribution here in the UK. We also did our direct-to-fan distribution we did it via Vimeo at the time. So yeah, I think, just taking control of everything across the vertical from script to screen is really how you can do it, because there's no gatekeepers.
Interesting, because I think for most people, the gatekeepers, and this is the idea of this conference, are the people who are funding the project, right? That tends to be the hardest bit. I mean, when you started this, did you already have private investors that you had within your network that you were reaching out to get those that first film funded, or was that something that you were trying to build from scratch?
Yeah, so there were a couple. It was a co-pro. Well, yeah, it was a co-pro with, I forget the name of the company now. And one of the guys, Simon, was an ex-CTO of Panavision, I think. What's the other one? There's Panavision, and what's the other big coloring company? Like super famous. Can you remember?
So, like a post-production facility, you mean?
Yeah, is it Panavision and
Framestore? I don't know.
Oh man, I'm completely forgetting the name now. So, but he had a lot of contacts in the film industry. So through him, we did have a main investor that probably did like 80% of the investment. So in the short answer is yes, there was someone kind of lined up, but they were like not sure. They needed the right project. And when we came along, they were like, oh, there's these young hot shot guys who are like doing this thing, and it's this future sci-fi dystopian film. And they've like they're going to do all this kind of cool marketing stuff, and they're linked in with the music industry with one of their partners and blah blah blah, and they're like, yeah, this sounds awesome. So yeah, there was that link, but it was an easy sell, is the answer to that.
Okay, interesting. And you mentioned a couple of different sort of, I'd say, creative marketing ideas on trying to get more eyeballs onto the film with the comic books and the music video, and I absolutely love hearing those types of stories. I'm also wondering whether you have any more of those that you can share from other films, whether it's short films as well that you might, because I think what that does is really it puts a little bit more of the sort of power in the creative filmmakers, where a lot of filmmakers can sometimes feel like, well, once that film is done, really, I need to get yeses from a sales agent, and that sales agent needs to get yes from the distributors, and there isn't really much more I can do than that, I mean, because social media, yeah, I can post a bunch on Instagram, but that's not really going to do much. But you showed here some creative different things that filmmakers can actually do to create a buzz around the film, and I'm just wondering if you have any other examples of that you've done.
Yeah. So I mean, you really got to step back, right, and go, why the fuck are you doing this in the first place, right? You love film and you want to share it with people, and you enjoy the creative process. So like, go out and do cool stuff that's like fun to do, like putting that comic book together was fun. We met the DC Comics guy, then they invited us out to go to all the Comic Cons. So then we're going to Comic Cons, and then we're hanging out there and we're doing drinks afterwards and having a party. Like, like that journey was fun. And like, hey, we're going to do a music video, and we're coming up. Like, I think people forget that, a big part of being in the creative industry is because it is just so much fun. And like, you don't have to be so corporate and like, we've got to get sales and treating it like you're selling some sort of widget. Just go out and be creative. And so what I would say is, and this is what I do with all my projects, whether I'm talking about a music project or a film project, right? I'm like, what is the unique hook that we can create around this? Right. And even with like singles or something, like songs about a particular thing, can we do a thing where it's like, well, one of the, like, I know that the lead singer is a massive skateboard fan. I know why don't we do a thing where we get the artwork, done onto the back of a skateboard, and we'll go down to like a laminating factory, and we'll talk about the whole process and have them putting it on the skateboard, and then he'll have it, and then he'll put the wheels on, and he'll go down to skate park and do a trick, and like, that's a whole kind of thing. And then we're going to do 10 of them, and they're going to be special sale, only 10 of them signed by him for like $65, and that becomes like a story and a thing. In the film, like, and using a film thing, when you had the NFT explosions, whether you're into them or not into them or whatever, like that's becoming a thing now. We did Stephen Graves' The Dead of Winter. So we started FF3, which was our like NFT crowd raising platform using NFTs. And we did like one of the first successful raises on the platform, which was really cool. And that then we created NFT tokens. We got a guy on who did all the artwork for all the Star Wars posters and stuff here. Adam Ralph, who's a really talented guy. So he came on board. He did this like poster, and we created all these like NFTs around it, and then people could buy them. We had like a score NFT where if you bought into that, you got a percentage of the sales of the score that was then uploaded onto music sales services. So we kind of, again, like, why were people investing in this film and getting involved? Because we created a story around it, something that was interesting and something that was different. That in that case, that was, like quite in depth. I'm looking at a film today, right? They want to do cash flowing on the tax relief. So we do that, and we're building like a whole platform in the background. But at the moment, we occasionally do cash flow and tax on the tax credit for short films. And I'm like, am I going to do this or am I going to not? The main actress in the film is also a musician, and she's putting out an EP around this. And then I was like, cool, there's a USP thing. We can have this. There's going to be a little music video. She's going to put some music out that's going to have like diverse of an audience. That's a cool story that you can run with. We'd probably be able to get some press around it. Like, so now it's a way more attractive package, right? And that's what you've got to be thinking about. Like, what's your new and different thing? And then, like you said, like when you say, oh, we get a sales agent, or, what else can I do? I can upload some stuff on Instagram. Well, then suddenly if you do come up with this like unique story, there's so much you can do around it and to help push what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's great, and I think a lot more filmmakers need to have that attitude of just bringing back and having fun with it and being creative with it, because I think again, I've talked about this a lot in the last 3 days, but the industry can be filled with so many rejections, so many no's that that it can feel like not fun anymore, so it's important to bring that back a bit, because when we're having fun, I think that's also when we're being the most creative and making the best work. I would love to now move on to talking a little bit more about First Flights. Can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, why did you start the company, and what is it?
Going back to my original story about meeting Phil in Cannes, it really was just a vehicle to keep so as it turned out, it was to keep doing these like indie budget features, just to continue on what we're doing at the label, at the film label, and we signed our first project, first director, got announced in Variety mag, and I've completely forgotten the name of the director, forgive me. A few years ago, and we were going to, a big part of that was using the SCIS scheme, because we'd used that and utilized it, and it really like lowered the risk for all our investors. So we had like a working model, and then we literally announced it, and then about 2 weeks later, HMRC just went no, because there was too many people were abusing the system. There was that the film that came out that was like, it was a real mess, and basically it was impossible to get your films raised that way, and it really put a stopgap on things. So we were like, okay, where can we go now? So we looked at the charity angle. We ended up actually starting a charity, and I went through the process of that, which is not easy, but I now know how to do it. And then I was looking around and going, okay, the way we decide what feature films we decide to invest in is we're always looking at the shorts, right? I mean, you know, because we're working with like first or second time feature directors, right? So you don't really have a big track record of like your features. So how else are we going to figure out whether or not like we want to invest in you? Like, what's your exact body of work? And most of the time it's short films, right? They're your calling card. So it was like, okay, so that's maybe we should focus on. Like, is there a way we can kind of help nurture that or help create a pool of talent in which we can control the narrative and control the talent and really like be able to narrow down on what is the talent to then bring in and make these features. And that was the premise of the Short Film Fund. And that's why that was launched. And so we did that 3 years ago. And that was a combination. So it works on there's submission fees for it. So the submission fees go into the pot as well. And then we've got private equity investors that put some money in. And then from that, we like draw out and give we make our awards. We give out our grants for the filmmakers and then we help them make their films. So it's not just hey, here's your money, go off and do it. We're there to kind of help them as well, because a lot of people are like, a lot of filmmakers are at the beginning of their journey. You know, they need feedback on like, is the script good? You know, how am I going to do my marketing? You know, what's the festival strategy? And, you know, we've got lots of contacts and experience in there. So we definitely help them with that as well. So, and not only that, it gives them a nice brand as well. You know, like, especially now we've got a BAFTA and Oscar winning film under our belts. You know, when someone goes, First Flights is backing, you know, I've won a First Flights grant to make my film. It's like, it's the same thing as like saying, well, I'm really blowing my own trumpet here by saying it's the same thing as like, you know, getting like a BFI grant or something. Maybe not quite at that level, but it's definitely something that carries weight and allows people to unlock other doors to equity as well and open up other doors for their career. So yeah, that was a big part. And that's, you know, we run that twice a year. That's like a big part of what we do. And that's how we create our like kind of pool of filmmakers. And the idea is those films then go on to make features. So we've been working on Legs is one of them at the moment. And another one is Sister Wives as well. So that's going to be a feature. But yeah, if you want to talk about going from short to features, you know, it's a lot harder than you think. I'll tell you that now.
Yeah. And let's start with the shorts, because you mentioned is the first film that you guys funded for the First Flights Fund, The Irish Goodbye?
It was one of three.
Or one of the first three. Okay, well that was
I know. I cannot believe just like crack, knocked that one out of the park on the first one. All my mates are like, you're such a jammy bastard, Sadler. Like, you go in, no matter what you do, you'll go in, and within like a year or two, you'll be like at the top. And
So-
you know what, like, you know, there's so much luck and coincidence and stuff. You know, it is about like working hard and lining up all your ducks, but there is just, you know, a lot of luck involved in it as well.
And did you find that the team behind that project was particularly experienced, for example, or what was it that, you know, that's because you were sort of there from the very, very early phases of, you know, essentially seeing the script, you know, to seeing the film win an Oscar. Can you like, you know, kind of materialize what were the actual elements that made that film a success, perhaps beyond the idea or beyond the story? Because I think there are a lot of filmmakers that have a good idea or a good story, but it's somewhere along the line in the execution phase it starts to fall apart, or it's not quite what it seemed at the start. So I'm just wondering what elements that production had that made it so successful. Yeah,
it's a really good question. So there's a couple of things to unpack here. You know, first of all, it was the guy's second film, and they're not they never went to filmmaking school either.
Wow.
So like, you know, like a really easy answer to that is I remember when they came back and after they'd won. So I'll jump forward and then I'll jump back. And they did a tour of the UK where the film was being played. And then they'll do a talk afterwards, and they were really cool. They bought one of the, you know, they had one of the Oscars with them, and you know, the audience could get up there and get a photo and stuff. They're really cool about sharing the love and all that kind of stuff. And I was sitting there at the in the Fulham one, because we're going out for hanging out afterwards and stuff while they're in, because they live outside London, and they're doing the live Q&A, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at them and I'm just thinking, hang on, did these guys go to film school? I was like, no, I don't think they went to film school. And I was like, I think they did acting. Yeah, I think they did some acting. That's how they met. I think they met at acting school, but they didn't do any filmmaking. And I was like, so how did they know how to make an Oscar-winning film if they didn't go to film school? And I was like sitting there like thinking about this while they're on stage talking. So I was like, just put my hand up, and they're like, oh, Nick, hey, you got a question? What are you going to ask us? And then I was like, how, you guys didn't go to film school, did you? They're like, no. And I was like, well, how did you know how to make such a great film? How'd you learn? And they just said, well, we just sat down and we just watched like all the Oscar winning films, which are the best films in the world. And we just took them apart and said, these are the bits that win and these are the good bits. And that's how we learned. Then we put an Irish Goodbye together. And I was like, yeah, that's it. That's a pretty good way of doing it. Look at all the best ones and take your inspiration from there. And that was about as simple as it was, like, and it's so simple. It seems not like a cheat, but like, it is actually that easy, like what they didn't let get in the way is they didn't let their creative ego get in the way. Maybe there's a lot of people that, think they've got something to say or think they've got something to show the world. And maybe they do, but it gets in the way of telling a good story, like, it's got to be this certain way because of blah, 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 blah. And it's like, does it? Because, never has before that worked out for people. So maybe it's not going to work out for you. So I think they were and they don't have it. And that's the thing as well about Tom and Ross, zero egos. They're like the loveliest guys I've ever met in the film industry. Like still today, just so humble and like, yeah. And I think that's a big part of it as well. But going back to the start, like even before, we got to that point, I think on that round we had about 500, no, not 500, it's way less than that. It's about 350 people submitted. And so, we're going through and looking at the applications and reading all the scripts. And I like when I read the script, I didn't think like, yeah, Oscar winner right here. Like that didn't cross my mind. I did think, hey, this is a really heartwarming story. This is like a pretty good story, right? So that's your first part. Like if I'm going to talk about this, if anyone here is thinking about, applying for our grant, like what's the process we go through, like, so you guys can have a bit of idea of what we're looking for. First thing is you have to start with a great story. Always has to be a good story. It's same in music. Everything starts with a great song. In film, everything starts with a great story. And I actually think, script writers should be just as celebrated as directors. There's a whole thing about why this happened in the French art scene, in the French film scene in the 70s, if you want to go down that thing. But there is an actual reason why the directors are the ones that are celebrated in the film industry and not the writers, even though the writers are the ones that actually create the story. Anyway, aside from that, it really does start with the story. So you read through that. Then the next part is like, what is the team? Who's the team around this? So then we're reading like, okay, so it's Tom and Ross and, okay, they did Roy, which was their first short film. Okay, yeah, that's a pretty good film. Yeah, and that got picked up as well. Okay, so that's pretty cool as well. What else have they got going on? Kind of like looking at the team and they, in their application, they're like, we're getting this person on board and that person on board. Now at that point, they had been they've been longlisted, then they've been shortlisted. So we get down to a short list of like 15 to 16 films. And that's done by people reading the scripts, and we've got like a point-based system that's based out of 70, so what's the motivation, what's the cast, all that kind of stuff. And we just literally have a point system, and, it's essentially like the people in the top 15, 16 are the ones that get shortlisted. So it's very, very story-driven at that point. Have you got a great story? And then we go through and looking at the applications, and then we sit down with the filmmakers and do a one-to-one interview with them. And so that's when we can actually find out, like, what are they like as people, which is really important. Is this someone we could work with? Can we, are they coming across professionally? That's a big part. Are these people sort of like, if we're going to give you this money, are you going to use it wisely? That's a big thing. And by the way, like, that doesn't mean, because there's some people that we've worked with who are very inexperienced, and we realize that as well. That doesn't mean we're not going to give you the money, because there's some projects where we're like, this is a great story, it needs to be told. You know, you guys are really inexperienced, but we're going to help you out with that. That's don't worry about that. That's not a problem. I can see you've got a really strong vision. You know, but again, that's part of it when we meet you. You know, can you articulate your vision really clearly? Are you passionate about it? Are you talking from the heart? If you are, that's a massive plus for us. So they go, you know, so you go through that process, and yeah, and then, you know, those guys, a birthday party, and not Lost. I've forgotten the name of the other film now. But the third one were the ones that kind of got through to that last part that we all gave grants to. So that's the story.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. And so you also, you know, you mentioned a little bit, you know, moving from shorts to features, and you know, and I think that's something that you also help a lot of filmmakers do, kind of actually make their debut feature films. And I guess my first question is, what are the main challenges? What are the main obstacles that you feel filmmakers face when they're making that first jump into features? What are, you know, perhaps the main errors that they make, or the biggest obstacles that they need to face?
I mean, I think one thing that I do see quite a bit, and I'm not going to talk about what errors people are making, like necessarily like on set per se, because I'm not the on set kind of guy. I'm an executive producer, not a line producer. But from the business side, the funny one, the one that I keep getting up is people just not understanding that, like, your first film most likely is not going to be a $3 million budget film. Like, you should probably write, you know, okay, because there's two ways of coming into this, right? You got two options as a filmmaker, and you're doing some shorts and you're like, I want to do a feature, right? So the first way is connections, right? You've gone through your BFI darling. Maybe there's some nepotism there. You come from a rich family, you know, your dad is on the board of whatever. Like, you know, there's that area of it, right? And you see people that are being, like, you know, kind of groomed to be the next great thing, right? And you know, that is just a reality, and that sometimes happens. And in that case, sometimes you will get someone who is like their debut. It's a $5 million budget. It's the first feature they've ever done. The reason why they are on that path is because they were on that path when they were born, right? That is the reality of it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of that goes on, right? And so if you're not in that situation, you can't create that, right? You're kind of like, you're born into that network to some degree, or no, born is maybe not quite the right thing. It's a big part of it, but you know, you went to the right university, and you networked with the right people early on in your career, and that kind of stuff. Or you got a job at Netflix when you were 18, and then you got really good friends with, you know, Santos or whatever. And like, there's that thing, there's the network thing. That's one way. The second way, and if you go that way, that's where you see the people who often have bigger budget films for their first film, personally, is what I find. Then the second way is you go out and you have to go out and raise the money yourselves, right? You have to put the money in, you have to find the network, you have to convince people to give you the money to do that. Now, maybe if you're like in the first camp and you know lots of rich people because you come from a wealthy background, you might be able to raise a hefty amount of money, right? And so you could do that. Maybe you're not. You might be only able to raise, you know, 250,000. But that's the second way of doing it, is you go out and raise the money so you can make your film. And those are generally the two ways. And some people, they think they're like, oh, my first film, I'm like, oh, what's the budget do you think this is going to be? And they're like, well, we're thinking like around 3 million. You know, first of all, they're pulling a number out of their ass. And it's like, have you even written down like what the budget is? Like, what is this actual budget? Because someone says something like that, it's like, well, you haven't really thought about this. Because if they were like, well, we've budgeted out and it's, you know, 2.875 million, but, you know, that's above the line. And then if we have like below the line, you know, and they're getting into detail, you're like, okay, cool, they've thought about this. Again, it might still be like, are you going to be able to raise that money? Like, you know, the idea isn't that unique. You haven't really, you know, like you haven't won any awards on your short. Like that's probably not going to be, you know, necessarily attainable. But, you know, the worst is when just, yeah, people pull out the number. You know, when someone comes to us and they know where they're at in the industry, you know, they know what they're going to be able to draw on sales. They know the worth of their idea. They've got a lot of detail around what the budget is and how they're going to work it. You know, that's more of a realistic, for me, like when I see that, I'm like, this is a realistic filmmaker. This is someone we can work with. This is someone who kind of gets it as well. So yeah, that's kind of one area I would say that is like the inexperienced filmmaker jumping to features really struggles with like kind of understanding and working through and stuff. And it's probably because it just sort of comes with experience to some degree.
And you know, I guess a question that I also have is, you know, there might be quite a lot of filmmakers here listening to us tonight who are wondering whether they're ready to make a jump into features, and I'm wondering how they know if they're ready, because I find that, you know, if you're making that first features and if you get private investors to actually invest in that feature and you get some yeses from people, and then you fuck it up, you're then going to have a real uphill battle to ever get funding again. On the other hand, I see a lot of filmmakers, you know, I run this monthly networking event, and I see a lot of filmmakers who have been making short films for 6-7 years, and they're still like, oh, I'm still not ready for a feature. And they're stuck in this eternal thing of trying to make another better short. So I'm just wondering, how do you know if you're ready for a feature or not?
Oh man, that is a deep question. What you have to do is you have to light a few candles and you have to stand in front of a mirror and you've really got to look into your soul and you have to ask yourself, do you have what it takes? And you have to ask yourself and listen to your voice. And does it say, yes, I believe in myself and I will commit and I will sacrifice everything to make this a success? Then go make a feature. But if there is any lingering doubts, get back to your shorts.
Yeah, no,
I was being a bit melodramatic about that, but like, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. The other
but a feature is going to completely consume your life, especially
but just
quite a while. So you need to be sure.
The thing is, just get out and do it. Like Nike's one of my like favorite logos because it's just do it. And you know what? There's like Cos, right? His first film, which was before we worked with him, Dark Beacon. Oh my God, what was it called? The Devil's Rose or something. Like it was like, yeah, you know, I'm definitely not going to recommend anyone, you know, necessarily go and watch it. Wandering Rose, you know, it was all right, but it's like, you know, but you know, even Pandorica, you know, that was like it was a solid film, but you know, on IMDb it's like 3.8 or something. I mean, you do get that with kind of genre films and stuff like that and low budgets, but like it just allowed them to go on and make the next film. Like it's so long as it isn't like an absolute piece of shit film where it's like really awkward and you're like, it's like watching a car crash. Obviously at that point, yeah, maybe you're a little bit too early, but generally like, you know, it's not because a feature has got so many people involved. So long as you've got a good DP and you've got a good team, you're probably, and a good editor, good sound guy, you're probably going to get and the story is good, you're going to get a pretty good film. Like I'm always in awe of when I finally see an independent film on screen. I think, God, it's so amazing, everything you got to go through to get to this point. Like, it's the fact that you have to go through so many steps that means, you know, it's quite hard to cock it up and get a really, really, really bad film. So my advice is like, you know, just go out there and try and make a feature. Try and, you know, and if it's a budget issue, try and make a micro budget feature. Yeah, I mean, you know, like, you know, my old business partner, Tom, you know, he didn't do shorts. He just went straight in with a feature, you know, and it was fine. I mean, he did like music videos and he had experience, but yeah, to ask whether or not, you know, whether you think you're ready or not. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. So like, if you're making a decent short and people are going, hey, that's pretty good quality, and maybe you've been nominated for a few awards, you're probably all right to make a feature. Are you ready to make a $3 million feature? No. Are you ready to make a 250 grand feature? Yeah. Go and just do it. Go through the process.
You almost answered my next question. I mean, maybe you'll have some more thoughts there as well. But the question being, when you're making that first feature, how do you make it a success? How do you make sure that you don't screw it up? And I think a key over here that you already mentioned is the team, because having the right team in place again on a feature give you that insurance policy that a lot of people need to screw up in order for the final result to not be good. And I guess another piece of insight over here is that really, really good people attract other really good people, right? So if the first couple of people that you hire, whether if you're a director, whether it's a producer, a DP, if those are your mates that also have never done a feature before, then you're probably going to go down the trajectory of having a bunch of really, really inexperienced people. On the other hand, if you manage to find 2 or 3 really good people, they will attract the rest, who are also going to be quite experienced and put you on a trajectory of success. But I'm wondering, aside from that, are there any other kind of thoughts that you can give first time debut feature filmmakers on how to make it a success?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, it's just the team. Just to add to it, I mean, your DP, number 1, sound guy, number 2, like product set design, number 3, because it's a visual and sound medium, right? Like if it looks like shit and sounds like crap, you're already stuffed. Even if the acting's amazing, you're stuffed, right? Like it's a bomb, but if it looks really great, sounds really awesome, and and a good editor as well, I don't think that, I think the DP, sound and set designer are kind of sit above that if you can get those 3 right. The acting can be like so, that's why, like great horrors and stuff like that, the acting's so, but it's a good story, and they've, the visual effects and stuff, they've written, like, a DP is really good, they've got a good VFX guy and stuff like that. It really kind of makes it. So I would always say focus on those 3. If you can get those 3 locked in who are really experienced, that's half the battle. And then outside the team, I mean, where do you begin? Like, making sure someone, I mean, experienced producer, like experienced line producer. You don't want someone who's learning the ropes in the producer role or the line producer role. You want to have someone who's done it 3 or 4 times before, at least. I would say that. Again, just talking about team, but like, I mean, beyond that, like, it's the team that makes the dream. So it's kind of really hard to talk about anything else that, makes a success if you're talking about making the film. And then I guess it would just be going back to thinking about at the beginning of the journey, how are we marketing this? How are we bringing a buzz around this? What's going to be our unique thing around this? And because if you think about it early as well, there might be things like, so another thing we did right on Pandorica, because I was thinking about marketing all beforehand. We're like, oh, we're going to go make sure we do like interviews with all the artists that are on set. And then we're going to have like a behind the screen thing. We're going to get a special photo of when they're in all their garb and a thing. So we're doing all those kind of press packs, but like stuff like that's really easy to forget when you're on when it's maybe your first film. And then afterwards, they're like, hey, so you got like, character pictures? And you're like, oh, no. Did you not have a photographer on set one day? And they're like, oh, no, we sort of didn't. Or like, okay, what about interviews? Yeah, I guess, yeah, okay. I mean, such and such lives in Germany, but I guess maybe we can do like an interview over Zoom. And like all of that stuff starts crumbling. Whereas if you're thinking about it beforehand, you're going to have someone on the day who's like, okay, cool. We're going to, when they're sitting in makeup, we'll do a quick interview with the actor about how's it going. And, it's definitely like the atmosphere is going to be there. That's going to make a really cool, like B-roll for like what's going on, the how they're made and all that kind of stuff. So thinking about it beforehand, what was the other thing we did on oh my God, I just forgot Stephen Grade's, the death of, I've just forgotten the name of it. Stephen Grade's The Dead of Winter is we had posters about the like NFTs and these kind of secret codes that were in the film, that then they were Easter eggs for people later on to be able to follow, to find like some secret things. Again, like, and then when we released that, people were like, oh my God, that's so cool. And like, we hold a whole buzz around it. But it's because we pre-thought that and thought, well, we'll make sure that we have these posters and they're printed out and they're in the kind of film, so we can later on talk about that. So I guess, yeah, the other part is, you know, if you're talking about like the marketing success and creating a buzz around the film, start like that on day one as well. Don't think about it afterwards, because there's a lot of opportunity that you just, you know, you have to do when you're on set.
Yeah, no, definitely.
There's some people that asked some questions as well. They were saying about, because I did want to ask.
Yeah. Do you know what? So I've got a couple of questions written down over here, because there were a couple about the Irish goodbye. Steve asked, for example, how important do you think getting the likes of London Flair involved in the marketing process, and how much do you think that played with the Irish goodbye's success?
Yeah, so great story around that. I was part of a, when we were getting into the kind of the NFT and side of things, we did I met this group. We had like a film meetup group at Brewdog down in Shoreditch in London on Tuesday nights, I think it was, or Wednesday nights. And we go down there and we're like talking about stuff. It was Mihai from, oh my God, Loom? I forgot the name of his company. God, if he watches this, he'll kick my ass for getting the name of his company. So he was organizing it, and we'd go along. You know, we're talking about Film 3 stuff and all that kind of stuff. And there's a guy who was turning up there, and from Shorts TV, and we sat down, and then he said, "Oh, Nick, were you one of the exec producers for An Irish Goodbye?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was. Like, how do you know?" And he's like, "Oh, I was watching it the other day, and I saw your name come up, and I thought, oh, there can't be that many Nick Sadlers in the film industry, and I guess it was you." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And I was like, "Oh, how come you're watching it?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm on the Academy branch for short films, and I'm reviewing all of them for Academy nominations." And I was like, "Oh." I had no idea that he was into this world, and he was like, "It's a really good film, and it's got a really good chance of being nominated, and if not going all the way." And I was like, "Oh wow, okay." And I was like, "How have you been on the board for?" And he's like, 20 years, and he's like, well in. He's an American guy, and I was like, "Okay, but like, what do we need to do? Like, how do we kind of like, you know, get this going?" And so he starts telling me, and I was like, wait, actually, can we have a meeting with Tom and Ross, and we sit down, and then we'll pick your brains and tell us exactly what we need to do? And he's like, yeah, sure. So we had a meeting, and so we got to speak to him, and he was like, "You need to get a great PR. You need to speak to Catherine from London Flair. She like pretty much dominates all the PR for the Oscars for short films. So, you know, I'll introduce you to her. You get that. If you're going to run like, and then just, you know, he's like, if you're going to run Facebook ads to target the people who are the people that, you know, who are on the abroad, don't do this, don't do that." Like, he just gave us this playbook. So that probably made things that definitely increased our chances, you know. But that's just, like I said at the beginning, you know, so much of it is, there's so much luck involved, right? I mean, what are the hell the chances of that happening, right? I just happen to be into that, and you know, but you know, you could say, yeah, but you're living in London, and it's like a creative center, and you're making sure you're getting involved with all the new things, and so you're interacting with other people that are doing new things, so you know, you're more likely to create all those synergies, you know. So I mean, I guess I would say always be out networking, and always be out like meeting the movers and the shakers. That is definitely a good way to make sure that you are increasing your chances and your likelihood of success. Networking is very key. But yeah, Steve, so yeah, that you have to be with London Flair PR. She does pretty much all the winners. So it definitely does help.
Interesting. Okay. And we've got a couple of questions here.
Budget was 22 grand, by the way.
Sorry?
The budget of An Irish Goodbye was 22 grand.
22 grand. Okay, that's great to know. And, we got a question about, does First Flight support those filmmakers that have created a micro budget feature already, or are you looking for ones who are about to?
Yeah. Like the way we look at it is, if you haven't cracked Hollywood, we're happy to talk to you. If you've already done like a couple of micro budget films, we're happy to talk. It's not like you can't have made a single feature film ever.
Okay, interesting. And can you tell us a little bit more? You mentioned at the very start about the academy that you're starting. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works? How filmmakers can learn more about it?
Yeah. Can you not post links in the comment section?
You can. Are you signed in?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think you already commented, right?
Yeah, but it just said this comment is failed to post.
All right. Can you put it in this has been happening. I'm not sure why. Can you put it in the private chat and I will add it in? I think there might be something.
Yeah, private chat. I think it's probably just so people can't be like scamming. They're like.
Yeah. That because it's always an issue of the links actually. Yeah. So I'm going to add that in now.
So yeah, that's the academy, guys. Go and join there. It's free. We're growing it. We're regularly posting in there. We post like a blog about filmmaking stuff. We get people to comment on it. I've just created a new AI film marketing assistant called FilmFlow, which you can access if you go into the community. You can access that. It's beta and it's free at the moment. You answer a whole lot of questions. It will then create like a 30-page full marketing plan for your film from start to finish. It's amazing. We put a lot of effort into it. So yeah, if you want to market a film, this is going to get you like 80 to 90% of the way there of what you need to do. So yeah, join up and jump into the community. Say you came here from Sydney Circle as well, and I'll give you a high five. A virtual high five.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been incredibly insightful and so many amazing stories about turning, creating these shorts and turning them into features. Do you have any final words of wisdom for the audience before we wrap up?
No, I mean, anyone's got any other questions? Someone's named Carter. I wasn't going to name Carter, but someone's named Carter, who's my contact at Shorts TV. Yeah, he's a legend. Are you interested in joining Shorts and EP? Need more money? Yeah. So I mean, everyone always, we don't take unsolicited requests, for equity in film, because we've got the Shorts Film Fund. We've set up a whole process. So if you're interested in us backing your film, we open up twice a year. We just opened up last week for the current round, which we're doing in conjunction with Kodak. So you can also have the option to film your film on actual film. And so you'll get the film for free. You'll get all the processing free done for that, as well as the money to make the film. And also in that as well, there is a $10,000 post-production deal as well with Periscope, who've worked on, loads of famous films. So yeah, it's a great round, but that's the way in. Don't email me and just say, hey, you interested in doing this private equity thing? No. If I have any more money, do you know where that money goes? It goes into the Short Film Fund pot. That is where it goes. And then, everybody has an a fairer, chance of getting in on it. Any other words of wisdom though? Nah, just it's hard, but you know what? Actually, I'll share something that was kind of interesting that might help with the struggle a little bit. So I was out with my friend Dave, and he's got a printing company, and we're talking about entrepreneurship and running companies and all that kind of stuff. And he's like me, he doesn't come from major money background or anything. He's a self-made person, and doing pretty well for himself. We're not millionaires, but we're fairly content and pretty happy with what we've decided to do. And we're talking about a friend who does come from a money background. You know how I was talking about those kind of two streams, and he's managed to carve himself out a pretty cool like career in like he does music videos, but he mostly does like ads and things like that, and art director, film director for ads. And he is miserable, depressed. And we were talking about it, and we were like, you know what? If there was no struggle, like it's the struggle and it's the little successes and wins and stuff. That's what makes, and it's hard, but it's those little wins and that like, hey, I've gone out and I've done it and I've stuck to my guns and I've managed to make something that makes you feel alive and like you've accomplished something and that you've managed to give something to the world. And like that, just remember that, like when it's hard, you know, you'd think it'd be so much easier if someone just gave you a pot of cash. It isn't. You'd be more depressed and you wouldn't be as satisfied in your life. So if you are like, oh man, I'm just struggling and I keep going and I don't feel like I'm getting on, it doesn't matter. That's the point. Like it's, you know, it's a cliche. It's the journey, you know, not the destination, but it's so true. And you just need to remember that and just celebrate. You know, you work in the creative industry. I mean, there's so many people that don't get that opportunity, you know, enjoy it and make fun and have jokes and do little, you know, and enjoy yourself while doing it. I think that's probably what I want to close on.
Great. Well, Nick, thank you so much. Thank you for the information, for the inspiration, and for sharing all the stories from all the films that you've worked on. Yeah, it's been really great to have you.
Yeah, awesome. And you know, thanks for having me on here as well. And yeah, the links are in there. If you guys apply for the fund, go to firstflights.com or join the academy. And yeah, thank you again for having me here.
Great. Thank you so much. Cheers. Okay, guys, we are going to have a very, very, very quick 1-minute break. And in just a moment, we'll be moving forward with the final talk. So as I mentioned, very, very quick break, and we'll be back in 1 minute with the final talk. Okay, guys, and we are back with our final talk, where we're going to be having a chat with Sean Patrick Burke, and we're going to come back to talking about finding private investors and the process of bringing private investors on board, and really how that fits into the whole process of making a film. We've had a couple of talks already in the last couple of days about finding private investment, but I'm hoping this can put it all into a bit of a timeline and paint a clear picture of how it really works. So Sean, if you're ready, I'm going to add you to the stage now. Sean, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay,
Awesome.
great. It'd be fantastic.
thanks for having me.
It would be great if you can start off by just introducing yourself, letting us know a little bit about your background, your previous experience, and what you're currently doing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. My name's Sean Patrick Burke. I am a film producer here living in the United States. I started my work in the film industry as a production assistant on some studio projects. And from there, I moved on to becoming a first AD on a bunch of independent films and commercials. And that was a great experience for me to, kind of see how sets operate and run and how you can be more efficient. And from that experience, I realized that I wanted to produce because I found that there was a disconnect between producers and the crew. And I wanted to unite that aspect, and I wanted sets to be functioning properly and people being treated properly. And so I jumped into producing, and the first film that I led produced was As You Are, which we took to the 2016 Sundance domestic competition. We were in the drama competition, and we won an award, and it was a great experience. It exceeded my expectations of my first film. And from there, I just started producing a lot. I was able to put the financing together for As You Are, and that's when I realized, okay, being able to raise private equity and producing good films, they go hand in hand. And so from there, I just started raising money for films. And so I raised the third of the budget for Super Troopers 2, and that was a pretty exciting experience to work with those guys. And I still work with Jay Chandrasekhar quite a bit. He's going to be directing a film of ours next year. So Super Troopers 2 was great. Then I moved on to a film called Quicksand. We started doing more international projects, and that one we shot in Bogota, Colombia. And a great experience. We filmed, and then in a month after we filmed, we sold the film to Shudder. So it was a very quick turnaround, which was great, and made investors very happy. And then now we're just putting together several projects we're going to be bringing over to Spain, the Canary Islands. We're looking at bringing some down to New Zealand. We have a show in the Philippines. So we're kind of all over the map right now, but definitely raising private equity is key to making that happen.
Great. And I'd love to, as I mentioned, in the intro, to talk a little bit about the process of that, because I think there's we've had a lot of questions over the last couple of days. People say that you need to have the cast in order to get the money, but you need to have the money in order to get a letter of intent from the cast and so on. At what stage do I start looking for, do I start applying for tax rebates and this and that? And I was just wondering, if you can try, and I understand every project is different, every project has a slightly different order and so on, but generally speaking, to put these things into order and to say, okay, when you're helping to finance a film, what order do these elements come on, and what are the biggest milestones that a film, or checkpoints that a film is trying to hit on the way from script to getting financed?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's definitely the hardest question to answer because independent films are set up for failure. You really are. It's a very difficult thing to go raise money for a film, especially if you have no cast attached. But the agents want to see money attached before they can sign their actors on. And so it's that catch-22. It's the ultimate catch-22 when it comes to producing. So you really have to be strategic about how you approach it. And going to investors and making a strong pitch, a pitch deck, putting financials together, making it look like what you're doing, so that they can say like, okay, I can put my money behind this person. You don't have to have them put anything into a bank account at that point. It's mostly like, I'm backing this project, so that you can go make backed financial offers to a cast. That's the hardest part. Getting that first investor is extremely difficult. Once you kind of do that, you're able to go and start packaging the film, because you really need to have backed financial offers or agents I mean, it's a little bit different in the UK. Agents seem a little bit more receptive to taking a look at projects, which is awesome. Here in the United States, the agents, they need to see that you have investment. That's the first question they'll ask is like, well, where are you at with your financing? They want to know that. Are you fully financed or where are you at with it? So that makes it very difficult. But, you know, you take a script. My process is I read a script. If it's workable for me and I think that it's a good enough script, and the writers are willing to take notes, that helps me kind of get this thing ready to go for the next step. And I read a script and I can tell just from reading it what the budget needs to be to make that an effective shoot. And then from there, I just have to start putting the puzzle together. I really think of producing as you're making a puzzle for every project. And you need to put every piece together so you can complete the puzzle and have a completed film. And so the script is the first and most important aspect of this whole process. You need to have a strong script. It's the ultimate sales tool. That's how you get people to sign on to your project. And so, so I think I'm just rambling now. Did I answer a little bit about?
No. I think that's great. You know, and so you started with that script. You try to put together that budget from that. You put together. You know, we talked a little bit in the past. You know, about what kind of elements, you know, what are all the elements that you can have? Say you don't have the cast attached. We touched upon this yesterday, but I'm wondering what your views are on it to see if it might be different. You know, you don't have the cast attached yet. What are all the different elements that you can put together into this pack to actually show investors to show them that you're serious?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it definitely comes back down to a pitch deck. You need to have a very, very strong pitch deck, which is the business plan for your film. So for every single film that you do, you're going to create your own entity, which is wherever you are. It's an LLC here in the United States. It's LTD in other parts of the world. You know, you need to create that foundation. You need to show investors that you're serious. You know that you have that set up. And so that has to be set up. And from there, you can base all your legal documents through that LLC. Because, you know, you need to look at it at a film as like, you know, it's 100% right there, right? The business is 100% so that you can divide up things and make it functional. The best way to look at it is usually 50-50 is how I split my film. So 50% goes to the investors and 50% goes to the production. I use those 50% from the production as bargaining chips to be able to get bigger actors to sign on to projects, or a big director and say, hey, I'll offer you a good chunk of the back end so that you'll sign on to this film. But that's the first step, is to create that LLC or LTD, and then you build out the financial plan, which is part of the pitch deck. Now, I make two different documents. I make one that's called the lookbook, which is more for like the creative, the artists, the actors, and then one which is the pitch deck, which is for the investors to be able to see that you know what you're talking about. Investors don't like risk, and film is very risky. So you have to find a way to mitigate as much risk as possible. And that's by finding the right places to film that have great tax incentives or rebate programs. You know, finding soft money out there. There's grants, there's government, government to government co-productions that you can get some soft money from. So ultimately you want to try to create you want to mitigate as much risk as possible for those investors, so that when you go to them and say, hey, I need, $1 million, and this is a $5 million film, that I was able to get $4 million through soft money, through rebates, through all the grants or whatever you can get. They're going to be like, okay, that's a great deal for me. You've mitigated so much risk. I don't have to put $5 million into this movie. That makes it a lot easier for them. And there's ways to get the companies out there. They're called debt lenders. They'll finance the tax incentives if you get letters from the governments or from the states that you're filming in to say, okay, we're going to this is the estimate you're going to get back. And they'll finance that. So the investors don't have to put that money up front, which is nice as well.
Okay, that's all really interesting. So I want to move on to a little bit of we spoke about cast and obviously getting a great. Or before we move on to that, private investors. I've asked this question to everyone who was talking about private investors, and you mentioned that films is an extremely risky investment, and therefore, why do private investors invest in film? And I'm wondering if you can give us some examples of who are these people that end up investing in, you know, in films, and do they, because I'm assuming they must have some sort of other motive aside from just wanting to make a return on their investment, because statistically speaking, it's not going to be the best place to do that. So who are private investors for films, and why do they invest in films?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And this is the biggest part of my job, is really networking constantly. I'm always out trying to find new investors and reaching out to people. You never know who's going to be interested in investing in film, but there definitely has to be a motive behind it. You know, people have to enjoy cinema, and they have to enjoy the arts to be able to want to invest in something like this. You know, you're going to get some people that might just want to try to, you know, get some money out of their account so that they don't have to pay a bunch of capital gains taxes or whatever, like little tax loopholes. So they'll try to do that. But for the most part, there are people that want to invest in the arts, in the cinema, and they want to be a part of it. Of course, they want to make money back. That's the ultimate goal. But they have to have an underlying interest in, you know, cinema and arts. But they're out there. And that's where one of my biggest key tips that I'll talk about later as well is networking, constantly networking. You never know who in your circle knows somebody who is a high net individual. They're everywhere. I'm telling you, they're everywhere. Your neighbor might know a guy who's worth $1 billion, and they can introduce you to them. That's the best part, to be able to get those, and building out a really strong team for yourself that can help go find people that have money, that know people who have money. And then you include those people in the process, because they can become executive producers. That's the fastest way to become an executive producer. If you can get money for a film, like you become an executive producer, you get an executive producer fee. It's a win-win for everybody. So yeah, it's constantly going out and just trying to find ways you can meet new people, meet new investors, and you have to be direct with people who you want to invest. You can't just keep talking about asking the questions, and you have to say, I want you to invest in my film. And you have to, and then they'll say, okay, well, why? And then that's when you come up with all the pitch decks and show them why it's going to be a good investment.
So networking is crucial, and let's maybe talk a little bit more about that, and how, for example, how you network, and perhaps some stories of how you found high net worth individuals wanting to invest in your films, because I think quite a few people, and have asked in the chat, over the last couple of days, oh, do you know any networking events where I can meet high net worth individuals? Or most people, when they think of networking, they'll think of, I need to go on Eventbrite and look for networking events and attend those. But what kind of networking do you do on a weekly or monthly basis to try and make those connections?
Yeah, it's really about spreading your seeds all over the place. And so, you really got to go online. There's great resources online. There's great, go find family funds. You can Google family funds in whatever country you're in the United States. And there's actual great databases that are free that have thousands of family funds. And a family fund is basically just family is a very ambiguous term when it comes to that, but it's just a group of investors that kind of pool their money together, and they go and find investments. Most of those people don't like to take risk in film, but you never know, you might find somebody. And so I email those people all the time. I'm emailing them, inquiring about any interest in film. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm reaching out to people all the time. It is going to events. Yeah, going to events and just talking to people. And don't sound desperate. Just go and meet people and be genuine. Tell them what you do, and then they're going to say, "Oh, I know somebody who might be interested in this." It's just a constant hustle. Producing is really it's a 24/7 job. I'm always producing, always doing something for this job, and I love producing, but it is a constant hustle.
Do you have any tips on in-person networking events? Say you go to one and you find someone and you can identify them as a relatively high net worth individual. I mean, do you talk to them about the film project right then and there? Do you just ask them about their life and try and make a longer term connection, and then somewhere further down the line ask them for investment? Or how would you go about doing that?
Yeah. And I'll go back a little bit on that being direct with them, because you do really want to try to build a relationship with the people. When you're in a relationship with an investor, it is like a marriage. You need to take it very seriously. You need to treat that person with respect, and you need to care about their money a lot. But you also need to know who they are and get to know them a little bit, get to know what they like, what they don't like, so that you can know for the next projects when you are able to bring it to them, what they're looking for. But yeah, if I go up to a person who I know is a high net individual, I'll just introduce myself to them, and then organically we start talking about like what we do and things like that. Everybody is fascinated about the film industry. Everybody will ask questions. Everybody wants to know what you've done. So you can really have fun talking about that stuff and just building that a meaningful connection with that person. And then I get their contact information. I try to arrange maybe for like a coffee or a Zoom or something like that. And then from there, you can start talking and saying like, hey, would you ever have any interest in investing in film? I think it'd be a very fun thing for us to do. So it's really about making meaningful connections.
Okay, interesting. And online. So again, yesterday we had someone who was doing a talk specifically on sort of booking meetings with decision makers on LinkedIn. But I'm wondering whether you have any thoughts on, again, when you reach out to people on LinkedIn, what do you say in that first message to try and get people to have a chat with you?
Yeah, I don't pitch in the first email. I really just try to introduce myself and what I've done, what I'm doing, show that I have a proven track record type thing, and just say like, is there any interest in having a further discussion with me? Because that's what that first one is. You don't want to come off too desperate and saying like, I want you to invest in my film, or don't want to say things like that. You just want to say like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. Do you want to talk further about, the film industry in general? Because some people might just say, no, I don't have any interest in the entertainment industry. Or they might just be like, yeah, let's just we'll schedule a general. And that you get some responses from people, but don't come across as too pushy and too needy at the beginning.
Okay. And I'd love to also have a brief kind of conversation about some of the practical legal elements that come into play when it comes to bringing on board a private investor. So you have that initial meeting with them. They say that they're interested. You have that interest from them, and then you want to start kind of using that to bring on board cast. At what point do you sign a contract? What kind of contracts are in place? At what point do you start discussing kind of the arrangement when it comes to the waterfall and so on? Can you just give us like a brief understanding of that relationship between you and the investor on paper? What does that look like at what point?
Yeah, so the first thing you're going to want to try to do is get like a letter of commitment, or an LOI, a letter of intent for them to want to invest in the film. It's not a contractual obligation. It's more so just like hey, I have interest in this. If ever anybody wants to see an LOI from your investor, you have it. I've never had to share my LOIs with anybody really, but it's more so for you to kind of have that relationship with your investor that that this is going to be a thing. And then from there, you can start packaging the film. I don't really get into investment agreements too early in the game because it can be a long process packaging a film. So I kind of handle that once we kind of get a few of the actors on board, and then we can go into like the legal phases, which a little step up from a letter of credit is letter of commitment is an offering letter. So I'll put together the offering letter, or have your entertainment attorney put it together. It's probably better to have your attorney do it. And the offering letter just basically maps out all of the terms. It's like a term sheet. And it's more a step up from a letter of commitment, because you put the terms in there, like you're going to be getting 35% of the investor shares in the film. You're going to get an executive producer credit. You're going to get, it tells all the things that you're going to give to that investor, and they sign that. And that's like you're ready to go, so that when you go into the contract phase, your lawyer will have that there to know that those are the terms. They'll put the deal together, the investment deal. And then, you get that signed, and really, I'm not really pushy for investors to put money into escrow right away, but some people like to have that put into escrow, as soon as possible. But because that can also take a little bit of time for the investors to put all that money together. So.
Okay, great, interesting. And then I'd also love to talk a little bit about how filmmakers can make their film more appealing for investors, and what do investors really care about? And just to let you know where I'm going to go with this, I'm afterwards going to ask you what can really help sell a film, and whether those two are actually the same and aligned or not. But starting off with with private investors, what are the key things that they tend to care about?
Yeah, so many investors do care about the script. They will want to read the script. My favorite investor, who unfortunately passed away last year, he loved to read the script, and he would pass on projects for the scripts that he didn't think were as good as the other ones, which I really appreciated, because we got to have some really meaningful discussions about art and creativity and stuff like that. So the script is the ultimate sales tool to be able to get some investors on board, but also to get actors to sign onto a project. You need to have that very, very fine-tuned. So work with people to get that script as perfect as it can be. And then the next thing is not just as much for investors, but it also helps pitch to investors. But this is also for finance companies or sales companies and distributors, is genre. You need to have a very genre-specific film. You can't have a film that has like 4 different genres. It's really hard for those companies to market the film. And also, making it a genre-specific film will help you as well. And then focusing on the right genre. So the 3 genres that really do translate internationally are action, thriller, and horror films. And so if you have those genres, you're able to know that film can travel internationally, because everybody has the same feelings about action films or thrillers or horrors. Everyone gets scared the same way around the world. But when you're talking about comedies and dramas, those don't travel as well internationally, because every country thinks different things are funny, and dramas are just really, really difficult to get made in the marketplace, because the market is very saturated with dramas. And independent dramas, you really need to have like A-list talent for that to be able to be something that sparks. Or you can have a Cinderella story where you have a film that does exceptionally well. Those do happen, but I wouldn't bet on that. That's a very rare occurrence. So that's the first thing is genre. Then you go into the director. Directors, you need to have a reputable director who's done it before, who has a proven track record. I have a lot on my slate of first-time feature directors, and those films are probably the hardest to get off the ground, just because investors don't know if that director has the ability to direct the film as well as maybe someone who's done like 2 or 3 plus films in their career and have made successful movies. So, and a lot of finance companies and sales companies, they really focus on the director as well, even over cast. They want to make sure that that director is going to be able to knock this thing out of the park. And then the cast is, of course, such an important aspect. They are the face of the film. They're the people that the sales companies go out and can sell the film with. So they are very important to be able to get the right people. So in my process, now that I've been able to make some films, I have sales companies that I can go to before I make a film, and I can ask them questions like, oh, can you hear me?
Sorry, yeah, you froze there just for a second, but I think you're coming back.
Yeah. Is it good now?
I think we can hear you now, yeah.
We're good now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. I guess my internet in my office is not as great as I thought it was. So the cast is very important. So I work with sales companies prior to making the film, and I go to them and say like, hey, is this actor good for sales? Is this actress good for sales? It kind of turns into a little bit of a gross part of the industry where you have to like value people, and I don't like that part of the process. And also, sales companies and distributors don't really notice trends and they also don't notice social media as much as they should. So those are kind of hard things that the industry is trying to catch up with. But yeah, so cast, director, and genre are the three most important aspects to be able to get people to sign on.
Okay, that's really interesting. And then I'm going to move on to, you know, what really helps to sell a film, or let me put it this way. I want to get to where can you get the best return on your investment when it comes to, you know, to making a profitable film. And I want to break this apart into lower budget films. So say you're making a micro budget film under 250K, you know, around $1 million, and then upwards from that. Because I interviewed this producer last year who, you know, it's not the perfect analogy, but he essentially said it's a little bit like you're trying to redecorate and renovate your house. You've got the script, and then you want to put a bunch of money into it to create something that's going to be more profitable, that the money that you're putting in is going to be worth more than before. And if you're renovating a house and you put a bunch of money into something that doesn't actually matter, you're not going to be able to, you know, to make a return on that investment. And I think it's probably similar with films, where, you know, some filmmakers might be wondering, you know, if I'm making this type of film, should I invest in this cast member? Should I invest in this, you know, crane shot? Should I invest in this location, and so on? And I'm just wondering, you know, in your sort of experience, starting off with micro budget features, where, you know, how do you make sure you put that money on screen in the best way possible that will give it the highest chance of actually being profitable?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're talking about lower budget films, I think that is where the genre is the most important. You know, we have this model that we use a lot where we go and make like $500,000 thrillers, and those, you know, distributors love content that's under $1 million because it's really a low risk sell for them. But it's really about the genre, because you got to look at it. If you're making a $200,000 film, you really got to be realistic with the fact that you're probably not going to get top tier talent that's going to be good for sales. So how can you make a model that makes sense for that is by focusing on that genre. Make a kick-ass thriller or a horror film that can travel internationally, that is unique and different and has a different approach, and make sure you put the money on the screen in terms of, don't go out and spend all your money on cast, because then you're going to have no money to pay your crew. You're not going to have a good DP. You're not going to have a good production designer. Those things are super important. But so you want to make the film look the best that it can look, and, you know, just cast people who are going to just deliver strong roles. And then you can, but it's really, for me, in my professional opinion, it's all about the genre at that point.
Okay. And then at what point does it start to shift to, you know, say cast or other elements in terms of, you know, when you get to a certain budget?
I mean, it's sales companies and distributors are always going to say the same thing. They're going to say, like, who's in the film so I can market it, right? It doesn't matter the budget. It makes it really difficult for that process. That's why when you do a film like a low budget thriller or horror, you know, you just got to make it look the best it can look and make it, you know, a standout film. Then they'll help you sell it. But I think anything, like, it kind of just goes to show with, like, the genre. Once again, like, if you're doing a thriller or a horror, like, you know, you want to try to keep those lower budget because it makes sense for that model. But they're not as cast dependent as, let's say, like a drama or a comedy. So it kind of just goes back to, like, which genre you're trying to talk about. But when you kind of get up into like the $2 to $5 million and plus type films, then you're going to really want to try to focus on getting names that make sense for that, so that you can make that budget make sense for the investors, for sales, for distributors, all that sort of stuff.
Okay. We've got a question from the audience, which is quite interesting. And by the way, for everyone else watching, please feel free to add some more questions for us. We'd love to answer those. Which is, I guess, a little bit focusing on what you should make for it to make sense sales-wise and what you really want to make creatively. So a question from Kim, would you suggest doing a genre you aren't necessarily really interested in, example horror, to prove yourself before moving on to another genre you are more interested in? So say you really love drama or comedies, would you suggest starting off with something different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, and this was going to be one of my answers for, like, what filmmakers sometimes do that make mistakes with. I think a lot of people will go out and try to just make a film to make a film, just because they think in their brains that it's going to make it easier for the next go around. But I think that sets you up for failure if you don't do it right. So, if you're not in love with the genre, I would say that's a tough thing. I wouldn't probably do that. If you find a script that you think you can work with and you can make happen, sure, go make a thriller or a horror. I think that those are the ones that are easiest to do low budget, that you can make a bigger splash with. But I think that you just have to go out and make an exceptional film. It doesn't really matter about the genre. If you can go make a drama for $200,000 that is very well put together, that is a well shot film that has great performances and everything is put together well, go do that. And that's how you can make a calling card for yourself. But don't rush that process. Don't cut corners. Don't try to make a $5 million film for $200,000. It's going to be awful. It's going to be a horrible experience. So you really have to find a script that works for that budget. That's a big part of it. But yeah, if you're not in love with the genre, I mean, that's hard to say. But a good example is Jason Blum, from Blumhouse Pictures. Like he's not a huge fan of horror films, but look at their company. They make some of the best horror films out there. And he found a model that made sense and he capitalized on it. And now it's one of the most successful companies out there.
And I think, especially if you're a director, right? Because I think it might be slightly different if you're a producer to an extent, but if you're a director and you're making a film that you're not completely passionate about, the chances that film will succeed is pretty low by itself. And the chances that you will be able to convince investors to put money into you and into that film is also going to be very, very difficult.
Great.
And have you found that it's also, it's better for directors to have and actually let me ask this question for both directors and producers. Is it better for them to have a certain niche, that once they've created one film of a certain genre, say horror, it's just, it will be easier to get those types of films funded? I imagine that would be the case for directors, but is it also for producers, or?
No, not as much for producers. That is really, producers can be genre agnostic, and I am. I have comedies on my slate. I do have dramas. I have prestige dramas. I think thrillers are kind of what I've been making the most of lately, just because they're easier to get out in the marketplace. And I do love thrillers as a fan. But for directors, it's very true. If you're a director, it's very hard to jump genres as a director. And sales and marketing people will find it, like. There's a few exceptions. Peter Farrelly went from doing Dumb and Dumber to doing Green Book. What's his name? Who did Pineapple Express? Why am I blanking? And then he did Halloween. It's like those guys have made it happen, right? But when you do a film, the sales companies and distributors are going to want to see that you can make a film within that genre. And yes, passion is a huge aspect of it. You need to be passionate about what you're doing, or else there's no point in doing it. But yeah, so I think it's smart to focus. If you're directing, I think it's smart to focus on the genre that you are in love with, and just make something spectacular. Make something that is unique and different and exceptional, and you'll stand out. And then the next time you do it, you have a good calling card.
Yeah, and I think passion is so essential, especially when you're making, especially when you're a filmmaker, and especially when you're making feature films, because it can really take over your life for years in a way that a regular 9-to-5 job wouldn't. And if you're not insanely passionate about it, you're probably going to give up some way halfway through. and waste a ton of time and a ton of possibly money and still not even make the film. So I think you have to be insanely passionate about it in order to make that happen, especially the first one.
And also going into like, I think in the United States, I think short films are kind of like looked down upon in terms of their value because they're very, like, you can't sell them, right? But they're also great I love short films because I think they're great to show what people can do. As You Are, our Sundance film, was a short film that I saw, and I approached the filmmaker and said, hey, do you have any plans to make this into a feature? I loved it. And then we made a feature that went on to win an award at Sundance, and that director just did a Margot Robbie and Travis Fimmel movie. So like he's off to the races and he's doing great. So I think the power of a short film that can be compelling and can show, it can also be a great calling card. So.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, you touched upon some of the things that filmmakers might get wrong, especially when they're making their first film. But specifically when it comes to finding finance and funding for a film, what are some of the other elements that you see first-time film producers get wrong when they're trying to get funding for their first feature for the first time?
Yeah, I think that patience is obviously going to be the number one thing. I think that investors they don't care about your timeline. They don't care about your schedules. They really don't. They've made their money. They can do whatever they want with it. So you have to really be patient and not overly persistent or pushy with them, because they're going to turn them off and they're going to be like, forget about it. I'm not going to do this. So patience is like one of the first things that you have to learn. It's very hard. It's very hard to have your film out there. And this is why I purposely do this, and it makes my wife very mad, but I take on way too many projects at once because I know that there's going to be a waiting period for every project. I have an offer out for one film for an actor. I'm going to have to wait 2-3 weeks before I hear back. So, okay, I'm on to the next project. And you just have to be patient. You have to find ways to do other activities, because waiting for investors can take time. And that is the first thing that you really don't want to turn them off with. Another thing is cutting corners. I see a lot of first-time producers or filmmakers in general that just cut corners, and you need to raise the money that you need for that particular film, or go find a film that is more contained, has less locations, has less cast, and go make that with a certain budget. But don't try to make, like I said earlier, don't try to make a $5 million film with a $200,000 budget. You're going to make a horrible experience for everybody involved, including yourself, including your investors. Like it's not something that you want to do. Casting a film without consulting or doing proper research. I've made this mistake too in the past. It's like you want to get your film packaged so that you can go out to your investors and show them who you have. But if you cast the wrong person for the role in terms of sales value, it can really hurt you. So talking to professionals, talking to sales companies, if you can get a meaningful consultation with them, and asking for some support with that is very helpful, because you're going to set yourself up for failure if you cast a film and then you need to go raise $2 million and you have no marketable actors. It's a very uphill battle. And at that point, you'll be really trying to get an investor who really just likes the project. Let's see. Not being honest with your investors. Now, this is a very important one that everyone needs to take this very seriously, because you cannot overpromise anything to your investors. Never, ever use the word guarantee with an investor. You cannot guarantee them anything. The marketplace is the marketplace. You need to just tell them, this is what the goal is. This is what I'm hoping we can get you back. And this is the turnaround time for that. But don't tell them you guarantee them they're going to make their money back. You're going to make them a ton of money. It's going to be a great experience. Don't do that. I see a lot of people try to do that with investors, and it ends up burning bridges for a lot more than just that filmmaker, because that investor will never invest in film ever again. And that investor will also tell all of his or her investor friends, don't invest in film. And that's bad for all filmmakers out there. Yeah, I think that's probably the ones.
you mentioned a little bit that you've got a large amount of projects that you're juggling at the same time, and I'm just wondering whether you have any tips for the producers here on watching on how to best do that, because I know when I used to produce films, I was sort of doing the same thing. I was juggling a couple of things plus other businesses and so on, and that would get very, very overwhelming. And actually making that, just even doing that shift of in the morning I'm working on this comedy that's about to get financed, and then in the evening I'm working on a horror that's nowhere near financed with completely different people, it's quite difficult. And I'm wondering whether you have any insight on how producers can best approach that to not get overwhelmed or burnt out from juggling various different things at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to kind of what we were talking about with passion. I mean, you just have to be really passionate about the projects that you're doing. Don't just take on a project to take on a project because you want to fill your slate. You want to be in love with the projects, and you want to be in love with the people that you're working with, because if you have a bad apple on any project, it can make it a miserable experience for everybody. So I just have am I all right to say a swear word, or are we not okay?
Absolutely. We've
okay. There's a no asshole policy in my company. And so, I just don't like to work with bad people. I want everybody to be treated appropriately on set. And that process just needs to be first and foremost, so you want to work with good people. Fill your slate with projects that you enjoy, with people that you enjoy talking with, and set those. You have to have really big discussions with these directors and writers and say, listen, I don't want you to be texting me every single day. I want you to know that I'm working on the projects, but these things take a lot of time. Filmmakers and directors and writers that I'm like, it froze again. Are we good? I tell them, oh geez, now I lost my thought because it was doing the circle. What was I going to say? Well, I tell them that if I spent my time updating everybody on every project, that's all I would be doing, is updating everybody on every project. I would not be producing. So you got to set your boundaries, and you got to just make sure that people know that you're working on the projects, and they'll reach out every once in a while for questions about updates or how things are going. But give them that. But to not get overwhelmed, you really have to set good boundaries for yourself, and you have to set a schedule for yourself. So I have 10 films right now that are at pretty high up in the pecking order of where things are going with them. And so I just prioritize those when I have 5 or 6 more films that are kind of just stagnant or sitting there. So I try to get all of those moving forward every day and every week, but you have to prioritize based off of which films are taking off the fastest. And that's kind of how I do it. And I tell the filmmakers when they come to me that that's the process. If your film is the one that's going to take off, we're going to go gung-ho with that, and we're going to get that going. We're going to get investments and all that sort of stuff. But you just got to be honest with people and let them know what your boundaries are, and then you won't burn yourself out.
Okay, that's definitely really good advice. I think we're coming to the end of the session now, but I'm just also wondering, can filmmakers reach out to you? If so, how, and what kind of filmmakers do you want to hear from at the moment? Is your slate full, or are you looking for filmmakers with projects that can potentially work with you?
So right now our slate is very full, but we are looking for Indonesian projects. Right now, just because I have an investor who is Indonesian that really wants a project to film over in Indonesia that has a good cultural significance for Indonesia, represents it well. And so that's really right now what we're only taking. I'm not taking pitches right now just because we have a full slate. But if people want to reach out to ask questions, in email, I can definitely answer some questions. Just give me some time to respond. But yeah, I don't mind doing that.
Okay, and just so we can get at your website, is that 222 Productions?
222 Pictures.
222 Pictures, that's the one. Okay, let me just get that up for everyone. 222pictures.com, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just add that into the chat so that everyone can check that out and take it from there. But except for that, I would just want to say a massive thank you for coming on a. I'm not sure it's quite evening for you. For us, it's a Friday evening. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all the valuable information and also all the stories from how you managed to fund your films. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So that no more questions.
I don't think we got any more at the moment.
Okay.
So I think that.
Also, for more key tips. So like I said, patience is key. Networking is key. But also due diligence. If you're going out to investors, make sure that you're doing your due diligence on them as well. And that just means doing your research on them, because the last thing you want to work with is someone who's a horrible human, or they've made bad investments, or they've cheated out businesses. Like, you can find that stuff through Googling and doing that. So do your due diligence on the people that you're working with as well, because they're going to be doing it on you. So make sure that you just know who you're getting in bed with, because that can make or break a project.
Yeah, definitely. Great thoughts there. Great. Well, thank you so much. Honestly, thank you. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure having you, and yeah, just want to say a massive thank you once again.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone who was here to listen. Appreciate it.
Great. Cheers. Thank you, and take care.
Okay, bye.
Okay, guys, and that brings us and the conference to an end. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to all of you as well. Thank you to everyone who's stuck with us for the last 3 days. There's been quite a lot of different sessions, so I'm hoping that you guys all got some value out of it, and that will help you fund your films in the future. Just yeah, as a final reminder. Once again, if you guys haven't done so yet, you can get that 1 month free for CineCircle Pro. And I just quickly want to run through some of the things that are happening in the next couple of weeks that you guys can utilize with this free membership. Some people mentioned a film networking event. So we are doing a in-person in London film networking event next Tuesday. With this membership, you can get free access to that event. We're also doing a masterclass on the film festival strategy next Tuesday in London. So, again, with this membership, you guys can attend all of that for free. We're doing a film crowdfunding workshop, interactive workshop, also in about a week's time. Once again, you can get the access to that completely for free, along with this membership. And the recordings from this, we will also be putting up onto the platform, so you guys can then get access to that. But aside from that, we also have the group chat from a sort of networking group specifically from people from this conference. I think we've had about 50 or 60 people join that so far and are networking in there. So feel free to join that group on CineCircle Pro as well and continue networking. I know some of you have made some great connections here in the chat, so you can continue them there. Eric, no, unfortunately, won't include a flight to London if you're based in the US. But like I said, there are quite a lot of online events there as well. So for everyone who's not based in London, you can have access to a ton of different online events. And we also have recordings from the majority of all the different talks, seminars, webinars, and everything that we've done over the last 6 years at CineCircle. So you can also see those there. And we also have some great discounts from some of our partners like film festivals, film funds, and so on. And we do make sure that we add, different features to that every single day as well, or every single week as well. So please feel free to check that out. And yeah, James, to access the recordings that will be here on CineCircle Pro. So on CineCircle Pro, there will be a tab called Classes. And if you go on that, at the very, very top, you will see the Film Funding Conference, where all the different talks will be broken down into the different sections. Yes, we are planning to do more of these conferences in the future, for sure. So yeah, currently, we're looking at dates for the next one. But yeah, in the next conference, we're looking to mix funding and distribution as well, because I think there's actually quite a lot of overlap between the theories of funding a film and selling and distributing a film. So we're looking to bring more distributors, sales agents, and so on, which is something that we've done in the past. So we are looking to do another one of these events in the next couple of months. So just, once more, I want to say a big thank you to everyone. Once again, I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And again, if you did enjoy this event, and if you joined the speakers and the talks and the seminars, once again, I think you guys will definitely enjoy CineCircle Pro, because there is a ton more of that on there. And everything on there has been designed specifically to teach filmmakers the business side of the industry. So what you won't find on there is courses on acting or directing. It will all be specifically on getting funding, distribution, and also building a sustainable career in the film industry. So really for a lot of people might be, turning a hobby into an actual business and a career and being able to monetize it. So I hope to see you all at some future events, or perhaps at our networking event next week, or our crowdfunding workshop in a week's time, or one of our future conferences. So once again, thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you at a future event. So thank you all, and have a nice weekend.